Chapter 630. There were still many things that needed to be done in the follow-up, and they needed immediate family members to complete them. This part had nothing to do with Luocchio. He returned to his house. He opened the door and walked into the living room. Then, he turned on the lights in the living room. At this moment, a person who was sitting on the long wooden bench in the living room suddenly became clear. That was Taisetsu. While turning on the lights, Taisetsu was also looking at Luocchio. He watched the young man calmly continue to close the door after turning on the lights. "How long have you been here? You are really bold." Taisetsu shook his head. "It was the same last time. You didn't seem to be afraid. It stands to reason that anyone who suddenly turns on the lights and sees a stranger in the house should at least be scared." "We didn't just know each other," Luocchio said calmly. "Then, we are not strangers, so?" Taisetsu knew what the other party was asking. He had just left a note saying that he would not come again. If he came again now, it would naturally be unreasonable. But, he had to go on. So, he looked at Luocchio and hesitated. "I saw you eating. After a while, I heard the sound of crying. Is the old lady? It's quite peaceful." Luocchio nodded. Sure enough. Taisetsu lowered his head. No one knew what he was thinking. He had already prepared for this in his heart. After all, before the nominal owner of this house, Luocchio, came back, he would come quietly every time his ex-wife came back with the child. Naturally, he was more aware. "What is this?" Taisetsu looked at the cup that Luocchio brought to him, and asked subconsciously. "It is tea made with osmanthus syrup. There are still leftover scraps." Luocchio smiled and said, "Do you want to eat? There should be some leftover rice balls made by Grandma Xiaochun. You probably haven't eaten yet, right?" Taisetsu nodded silently. Luocchio walked into the kitchen. After a while, he came out with a small bowl. Taisetsu ate the rice balls one after another without saying a word. What kind of taste is this? Taisetsu thought that if he could eat with his ex-wife's family, at least it would not be worse than what he felt now. At least, it would be another taste of life. "Did you come back just to see the old lady?" Luocchio suddenly looked at the light on the ceiling and asked. "Just think of it." Taisetsu was reluctant to talk about himself. He didn't even intend to come in here. But it was really inappropriate for him to appear in front of everyone. He wanted to ask about something purely out of respect for the grandmother who came to visit him when he was in prison. Taisetsu could only choose this young man who didn't seem to reject him. Luocchio suddenly moved a stool at this moment, and then stacked a smaller one on top of it. Then, he climbed up and reached for the ceiling light as if he wanted to find something inside. How long will you stay?" Taisetsu asked curiously. "After dealing with the old lady's funeral?" "Should be." Luocchio nodded. "Anyway, I have more free time. In fact, it's fine if you want to stay here. I said that it doesn't matter as long as you don't touch other things." "Ah, I found it." Luocchio took out a small thing from the lamp. "This is tooth." Luocchio smiled and said, "My father's tooth. Isn't there such a small custom? After children change their teeth, the adults will throw the new teeth in the shed, the lamp, and the like, saying that the new teeth will grow faster in this way. In fact, I saw it yesterday. At that time, I didn't intend to take it down. I thought it would be good to leave it like this. But well, I said something that didn't interest you. Sorry." Taisetsu shook his head. It seemed that he could always feel the quietness from this young man. He unconsciously quieted down and smiled slightly. "It's nothing. I haven't talked to anyone for a long time. It's good." "Reunion, do you want more?" "Then, one more bowl." Later, Luocchio brought a pillow and a quilt from upstairs. "You took your own things. Don't sleep in the utility room tonight. Can you sleep in the living room?" Taisetsu took it silently. "I have filled the kettle with hot water. Just use the cup," Luocchio said. "Then I won't disturb your rest." "Seriously?" Seeing Luocchio leave, Taisetsu couldn't help but call out, "How can you be so assured of me?" Aren't you afraid that I'm really a bad person? Luochu turned back and said, except for the locked room, the other places here are not as dirty as you imagined, but you haven't lived here for several years. Isn't it somewhat unreasonable? Taisetsu shook his head. I can't live here for free. Besides, sometimes I'm bored, so I do something. It's nothing. If you are a bad person, Luochu thought for a while and said, generally, you will ask for more and avoid giving as much as possible, so good night. Wait a minute. Taisetsu took a deep breath, then took out his wallet from his bag, and took out all the money in it. After thinking for a while, he kept the small money and put all the big notes on the tea table. He looked at Luochu and said sincerely, can you, in your name, help me send to Ting Ting's family as a token of my sincerity? Just put it here. Luochu nodded, then turned off the light in the living room, leaving only a small one on, and went upstairs directly. Under the dim light, Taisetsu, who was lying on the bed, gradually got his pajamas. He hadn't tried to be so calm before sleep for a long time. Perhaps the hot tea brewed with osmanthus syrup had a calming effect. As he thought of this, he gradually fell asleep. Later. Sang-kun, I have something to talk to you about. A shirtless man was now holding a woman with heavy makeup and singing. This kind of karaoke room was very popular in this era. Ah, I was wondering who it was. Isn't this brother Taisetsu? Sang-kun pushed the woman away, then looked at the other man who stood closely behind Taisetsu and slammed the table. You two eat shit? Don't you know that brother Taisetsu and I are good brothers? Go away now. What are you doing? After the underling walked away, Sang-kun stood up with a bottle of beer in his hand. Brother Taisetsu, we are honored by your presence, so there is nothing to entertain you. But you can play in this nightclub as you wish. It's my treat. Sang-kun, don't talk nonsense with me. Taisetsu said indifferently, let's talk about Xiaohu, then I will leave. Xiaohu? Which Xiaohu? Sang-kun patted his head and thought hard. Big cat. Big cat, I have one here. I will introduce you to him later. Sang-kun, I am not here to joke around. I am here to ask you, did you set up a scheme to cheat Xiaohu of 500,000 yuan? My brother Taisetsu. Sang-kun said with a face full of grievances. What scheme? I don't like what you said. I, Sang-kun, am in the underworld. The brothers in the underworld all know what kind of person I am. How can I do such a thing? Did you hear that nonsense? Sang-kun, if you continue to be like this, I can only find a few old people to judge. It's just a small matter. Sang-kun shrugged. I say, Taisetsu, do you have to disturb those retired seniors? You don't have to, right? Besides, you have already washed your hands of the underworld. You don't have to stir up trouble. Can't you just live your life well? I only have one sentence, this money, do you count it or not? Taisetsu narrowed his eyes. My brother Taisetsu. Sang-kun rolled his eyes. I am running a small business. If I can't get back the money, how can I explain it to the government? Besides, this matter on the gambling table is consensual, no one owes anyone, right? How about everyone wins money from me, but if they lose money, they will just leave after saying a few words. Then what will I eat? What will the brothers who follow me eat? Taisetsu, there is no such thing as a free lunch, right? Here is 50,000 yuan, you take it first. Taisetsu didn't say much. I will settle Xiaohu's account with you, but listen carefully, if you mess with his family again, don't blame me for being rude. Brother Zhe, isn't 50,000 yuan too little? Your good brother owes me a total of 500,000 yuan, plus interest. Sang-kun, quit while you're ahead, don't make everyone unhappy. Taisetsu said indifferently, 200,000 yuan, I will give you 200,000 yuan, and this matter will never happen. Otherwise, you say, Xiaohu is also a brother of the same family, is it good for you to set a trap for your own family? Think about it yourself, if you make a fuss and disturb those old uncles, don't blame me. Okay. Sang-kun sat down casually. I will treat it as selling a favor to you, Taisetsu. 3 days, in 3 days, you ask Xiaohu to bring the remaining 150,000 yuan to me, pour me tea and apologize, and I will treat it as if it never happened. 3 days is not enough, at most 1 week. No problem. Sang-kun smiled and said, who asked me to be Taisetsu's underling in the past? You ask, no problem. I will give you 10 days, okay? It's a deal. Brother Kun, are we just going to let this guy go like this? Sang-kun stared fiercely at this underling who was acting like a fool, and slapped him on the head. What else do you think we should do? Make a deal with him here? You go and chop? Don't you know what kind of person Taisetsu is? At the age of 14, he held a watermelon knife and chopped from Dongmen Bridge to Shimen Bridge. He defeated more than 10 people by himself. How can you compare to him? But didn't he wash his hands of it? Do we need to be afraid of him? Just treat it as giving him face. Sang-kun shook his leg and said with a smile, those retired old guys still like Taisetsu. He now owes me a favor, maybe it will be useful in the future. But I heard that Xiaohu kidnapped a rich man's son and is preparing to raise money. The underling shook his head. This Taisetsu came over and haggled you for $300,000. Isn't this cheating you? Is there such a thing? Sang-kun's face sank. Are you sure this news is true? I'm sure. I have a buddy who saw it. He said he saw Xiaohu's car. The child had just finished school, so he snatched it and ran away. After asking around, I found out that the child's father is a rich man. He has a clothing business and made a lot of money. That's interesting. Sang-kun sneered. This Taisetsu wants to be righteous no matter what. He doesn't do this and doesn't do that, making himself seem like a good person. Pui, isn't he doing these things behind the scenes? Isn't that right? This person is a hypocrite. Did this rich man report the case? Sang-kun thought for a while and asked. The underling said, I don't think so. We didn't hear any news about the kidnapping case in the police station. Sang-kun then smacked this little brother's head with all his might. A freeloader! Bastard, why didn't you tell me about such an important thing until now? That's because I thought that bastard Xiao who was trying to raise money for you, Brother Kun. In any case, I don't care how he got the money, as long as he can get the money, that's it. The younger brother felt wronged and said, but who would have thought that as soon as this Wei Dezhenren came up, he cut off 300,000? Boss, I feel bad for you. Okay, you can do that. Sang-kun had an idea. Find a few unfamiliar faces and keep an eye on this rich man. If there's any movement, tell me immediately. Boss, what are you doing? What are you doing? Use your pig brain to think. Sang-kun sneered. I want the kidnapping money, but they have to take the blame. I want Taisetsu's $200,000, and I want his favor. Hey! This way we'll be able to make huge profits with a small capital. Be careful, don't let anyone find out. Remember to look for unfamiliar faces. Okay, I'll go now. Account balance, 5421.19. After leaving Sang-kun's nightclub, Taisetsu inserted his bank account into the nearest bank ATM. After looking at the balance, he took it out silently. At this moment, the phone rang. Along? Taisetsu asked immediately after the call was connected. Did you send him back? Sang-kun, I've talked to him. We only need to raise $150,000 in 10 days. Brother Zhe, it's not good. Xiaohu changed his mind. When we weren't paying attention, he turned around and took the child away. We can't find him now. We can't get through his phone. Taisetsu opened his eyes directly. Did I wake you up? It's dawn. Taisetsu shook his head and looked at the sky outside. What time is it? It's almost 10 o'clock. I've slept for so long. Taisetsu rubbed his forehead. After waking up a little, he immediately raised his head and asked, Last night, did anything happen last night? Or did you hear anything? A car came at dawn. Luocio said indifferently. It was to transport the body. There shouldn't be anything else. Will anything happen? No, nothing. Taisetsu shook his head, then quickly walked to the window, opened the curtain, and looked at the situation outside. There's no one outside now. I'll go first. I made breakfast. Don't you want to eat? No, no need. Chapter 631. You can drop me off here. At the back door of Luocio's hometown, Taisetsu stopped and shook his head. He asked Luocio not to send him off anymore. At this time, Luocio took out a key and gave it to Taisetsu. Take this. Next time you come, don't climb over the wall. Taisetsu was stunned and said in surprise, Are you really giving it to me? Do you really believe in people like me? Seeing that Taisetsu didn't directly reach out to take it, Luocio inserted the key into the lock of the back door and walked out directly from the back door. I'll go and see if there's anything I can help with. The key was here. He could reach out and touch it. Taisetsu was silent for a moment and finally took the key. When he left, he carefully closed the door. Taisetsu also made an appointment with Big Head today. This Xiao Yuqing hasn't looked for me since yesterday. I heard from his housekeeper that he still stayed at home and didn't go out. Brother Zhe, aren't you too sensitive? Big Head said while eating fried noodles from the food stall at the entrance of the village next door. Big Head, how long have you been with Xiao Yuqing? Well, more than 3 years. Big Head thought for a moment. It's almost 4 years. The world is not easy to survive. Brother Zhe, in the first few years when you first entered the country, the government began to crack down on the underworld. Since the incident with Sangkuan, the old uncles of the past have not had a good time. Now, where is the glory of the past? Everything has to be done according to procedures. Those officials are even worse than us. But we have no choice. If we want to survive, we can only rely on these people. These days, only people like Xiao Yuqing, who had connections with officials and could get a license, could do well in life. Let's be an errand boy. Let's not talk about this. Taisetsu shook his head. He wasn't completely out of touch with the outside world. He was very clear about the current situation in society. Big Head, tell me, what did Xiao Yuqing originally plan to do with me this time? What else? It was all because of the demolition project in the South District. A boss found Xiao Yuqing and asked him to do something for him. Big Head lowered his voice and said, Isn't it just finding someone to scare those who are unwilling to sign? There were a few families in the Southern District who were particularly stubborn. Xiao Yuqing planned to find someone to deal with them. Of course, we're definitely not allowed to see red now. But we can get some snakes, rats, and so on, and then we can set a fire and so on. You understand, right? Arson? He dares to do this now? Taisetsu sneered. Xiao Yuqing told me that he can get me out in a year. You don't know. Big Head said quietly. I also heard from the nanny of Xiao Yuqing's family. My girlfriend said that she eavesdropped. She said that the new district chief who was transferred to the police station last year is his brother-in-law. So, if Xiao Yuqing wants to get someone out, as long as it's not something that makes people angry, he can basically get them out. Besides, if he can get someone out, it proves that he has the ability. So, I'm not surprised that he told you to get you out early. After all, he has the ability. If the rumor spreads, there will be more big bosses looking for him to work. I really don't know about this. Taisetsu frowned. No one knew what he was thinking. Anyway, since the new district chief took office, Xiao Yuqing's courage has become fat. Big Head shrugged and said, Otherwise, do you think it's like the previous few times, where he asked you to take the blame for things like drunk driving, causing trouble, and injuring people? I want to go somewhere, Taisetsu said seriously. Oh, okay. Anyway, I have no work to do. Where do you want to go? Go to the nursing home. Taisetsu sighed and said, Go and visit Mr. Jean. President Xiao, what do you want to eat for lunch? I'll go buy it now. Xiao Yuqing sat on the sofa in his villa. He had just woken up, and it was only 9 o'clock. Facing the nanny's question, Xiao Yuqing said indifferently, "No need. I have a lunch appointment at noon. You can go to your work." The nanny nodded. At this moment, Xiao Yuqing's phone rang. Xiao Yuqing glanced at it, then stood up and walked out of the living room with the phone. He came to the courtyard outside the villa, closed the glass door of the living room, and then picked up the phone. "Have you settled the matter?" Xiao Yuqing asked. On the other side of the phone, "I'm sorry, President Xiao. We got lost. Now we are in Dafeng village and are rushing back." Xiao Yuqing was stunned. "Lost? How could you get lost?" We don't know. Last night we drove into the village road, and the route was not wrong. But as we walked, we realized something was wrong. We walked around for a long time. Finally, it was dawn. What the hell? We actually took a detour to Great Wind Village. Do you eat shit? Xiao Yuqing scolded. Dafeng Village is in the North District, and Luo Village is in the West District. There are so many mountains between them. How could you go around? Why didn't you tell me until now? Yes. We didn't do our job well. President Xiao, don't be angry. We were afraid that you were not awake, and we were afraid that we would wake you up. But we are going back now. It's daytime. We won't do it again. Don't. Please don't mess around, Xiao Yuqing said in a deep voice. You should go at night. It's daytime. Do you want to die? I know. Xiao Yuqing hung up the phone at once, and began to look at his yard. Such an industry was obtained through hard work. In this society, people eat people. It is harder for those who are merciful to climb up. He could climb up now, in addition to some connections, because he dared to do things and had a ruthless heart. At this moment, Xiao Yuqing was always vaguely uneasy. He inexplicably remembered the way Taisetsu stared at him. It was like a pure-bred Tibetan mastiff, which made him feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. In front of Taisetsu, his toughness was like a sand castle, which was instantly defeated. And under Taisetsu's murderous eyes, Xiao Yuqing felt like a man with impotence. His self-esteem, which had swelled step by step over the years, was thwarted, which made Xiao Yuqing feel very uncomfortable. Times were different, but he was still frightened by such an outdated little punk. Wouldn't it be a joke if word got out? At this time, Xiao Yuqing didn't think about anything else at all. He was just like a proud tiger whose tail had been stepped on. He wanted to declare his authority and teach this ungrateful Taisetsu a profound lesson. He wanted to let Taisetsu know that he, Xiao Yuqing, let him do things because he pitied him and thought highly of him. The matter in the southern district really didn't have to be done by Taisetsu. But at this moment, Xiao Yuqing had a twisted desire to let Taisetsu succumb to him, making him feel powerless and painful. In the end, no matter how he struggled, he had to let him do this thing. In the end, he would be like a chess piece thrown away, no longer caring about it. Thinking of this, Xiao Yuqing's eyes became extremely happy. He liked the wonderful feeling of being able to play with other people's lives. At this moment, the phone rang again. Xiao Yuqing glanced at the name on the caller ID and frowned subconsciously. Why is this old guy looking for me? Xiao Yuqing muttered, but still picked up the phone. Hello? Old Master Jean, what's wrong with you today? Why are you calling me? Why don't you find someone to tell me, and I'll go visit you? Xiao, it's like this, there's something. Although it was said to be a nursing home, it was not an ordinary one. It was a place where one could only enter by paying a lot of money. Every person who retired here had their own independent place, a residence that was not inferior to a small villa. Big Head sat a little anxiously at this moment, but Taisetsu, who was sitting next to him, looked much calmer. At this time, a white-haired old man who was in good spirits outside the living room courtyard walked in and smiled. Taisetsu. Taisetsu quickly stood up at this time, walked to the old man, and helped him sit down. Master Jean, please go ahead. This Xiao Yuqing, I have already said it. The old man. Master Jean said indifferently. I'll make an appearance and give you a toast. Just tonight. You can have a good chat. Master Jean, thank you. Taisetsu seemed to be relieved. Why are you so polite to an old man like me? Master Jean smiled and said, I can only pull this old face. If it was in the past, would this little bastard Xiao Yuqing dare to ask me to give him a toast? That's right. Big Head quickly said, in the past, who wasn't afraid of your name, Master Jean? This Big Head. Master Jean pointed to Big Head and shook his head. He laughed and said, You don't have any other skills, but your flattering mouth is not good. I really don't know how you can survive until now. Big Head scratched his head awkwardly. At this time, Master Jean suddenly looked at Taisetsu and said, Taisetsu, come with me to the temple hall. I have something to talk to you alone. Big Head, go and buy some vegetables. Make a delicious meal here at noon. Okay. Big Head quickly stood up. I'll go now. In the middle of the temple hall, there was a statue of Guanyin. In front of the platform, there was a green lamp and a futon. It looked very simple. The incense burner was burning sandalwood. Master Jean, what's the matter? After coming in, Master Jean did not say anything. He just asked Taisetsu to add incense to the statue of Guanyin on the platform and said that he had to be sincere. Taisetsu, did you encounter something recently? Master Jean looked at Taisetsu with a dignified face and asked. Taisetsu was stunned and hesitated. Master Jean, I don't quite understand what you mean. Chapter 632. What Taisetsu knew about Jin Yi was what he heard from others when he was young. This old man was 90 years old. During the war, he started his business in the area of Shanghai and Shenyang. At that time, he followed a boss surnamed Du and had a legendary story. Later, he came to this place. He heard that this was originally the place where Jin Ye's ancestral home was. After the war, he came back here to take root. Although he was just living out his remaining years in this town, he was not here before he retired. Before Jin Ye's mountain was disbanded, his sphere of influence was not small. But whether or not the old man was more superstitious recently, Taisetsu had some thoughts in his heart. So in the face of Jin Ye's question, he smiled and said, Old man, I don't think so. I don't believe in this thing. I knew you would say that. Jin Yi chuckled and suddenly reached out to grab Taisetsu's arm. Daz was taken aback at first, then he frowned. He secretly thought that the old man's hand strength was so great that he even felt a little pain from Daz's grip. Taisetsu subconsciously wanted to break free, but he found that he couldn't break free in the face of this 90-year-old old man. This Jin Yi, you. Only then did Jin Yi let go of his hand. Taisetsu rubbed his wrist and looked at it. He found that the place where he was grabbed was already red. He said in surprise, Old man, you are old but vigorous. Your hand strength is too powerful. I'm old. Jin Yi waved his hand and said, I'm just scaring you young people. Taisetsu, I'm already 90 years old. Why do I still have so much strength? Do you usually exercise? Taisetsu thought. Do Tai Chi in the park? Then take a walk when you have nothing to do? Jin Yi asked with amusement. Jin Yi, please say it. I really can't guess. Taisetsu shook his head. Jin Yi chuckled and said, When I was young, I met a wandering Taoist. At that time, I was still following Big Boss Du. This Taoist priest was an eccentric person. Perhaps it was my destiny, so he taught me some superficial martial arts. Don't be like this, it's not some divine martial arts, it's just a martial arts technique for maintaining one's health. It's not that magical. But it does give me a lot of stamina. I even slept with a little girl a few days ago. Haha. Master Jean, you're really vigorous despite your age. Taisetsu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was also very surprised. But is there really such a skill? Sit down. Lord Jean pointed to the chair next to the temple and sat down. Then he said, What's wrong? Do you really think that the things passed down by our ancestors are just for show? Taisetsu, let me tell you, the real expert is hidden, it's just that it's hard for us ordinary people to meet. Lord Jean. I don't understand. Why are you telling me these things? Taisetsu asked curiously. Taisetsu, aren't you curious about this martial arts technique for maintaining one's health? Don't you want to learn it? Lord Jean asked abruptly. I'm curious. Taisetsu shook his head and said, but what's the point of living so long? It's tiring enough to be a human. I don't want to live too long. For so many years. Lord Jean suddenly said, I told you about this. There are a total of 3 people, including you. One is my son, and the other is an old companion who has been with me for a long time. But you said that you don't want to learn. Lord Jean, it's not that I don't want to give you face. Taisetsu quickly said, to be honest, I'm really grateful that you can tell me this. But how to say it? I don't know how to say it. Are you still brooding about what happened in the past? Taisetsu nodded silently. For so many years, I've heard about what happened after you came out. Lord Jean sighed and said, you don't appear anymore and you don't contact people in the past. Occasionally, you help people take the blame. You come out and go back in again. People say that you don't change, but I can see that you want to cut off from the past. Taisetsu was silent. The days of fighting and killing are not easy. Lord Jean looked at the guanine statue in front of the hall. My son is younger than me when he learned this martial arts. Naturally, he learned it better than me, so he helped me fight for a lot of territories. What happened in the end? He was still killed by others. My old companion was the same. In the end, I was the only one left. Taisetsu, you washed your hands of it early. So many people opposed it at the beginning, but why did I support you? Do you know? Lord Jean, because I'm afraid. Lord Jean sighed and said, I'm afraid that I won't be able to find someone I like who can chat with me in the future. But you bastard, for so many years, if you didn't encounter Xiao Yuqing, you wouldn't have come to me, right? Lord Jean, I'm sorry. I really have no choice. You brat. Lord Jean glared at Taisetsu. I know your intention. You didn't come to me because you were afraid that I would think that you were coming to seek refuge, right? Last year on my birthday, I asked Big Head to send me a cake. But Big Head is a muddy thing. How could he remember that I like to eat peaches, so he specially put so much peach meat in it? I was just bluffing him, and he told me everything. Lord Jean, I just don't have the face to see you. Okay. Lord Jean said slowly, Xiao Yuqing will give me some face no matter what. This thing has done a lot of dirty things. If he dares to be impolite, then my old bones will just go outside. I recite scriptures every day, but it doesn't mean that I can let people bully my people. Thank you. Taisetsu quickly stood up and looked at the old man respectfully. Let's not worry about this matter first. At this time, Lord Jin's eyes suddenly lit up. He pressed one hand on Taisetsu's chest and then shouted. Taisetsu felt a huge force hit his body. He felt as if his internal organs were overturned. It was extremely painful, and he fell to the ground all of a sudden. At this time, Taisetsu looked at his body in horror. It was illuminated by a gray mist, and there were bursts of gloomy cries in the temple hall. Good, you evildoer! Lord Jin's palm holding the Buddha beads suddenly slapped down. The mist was suddenly dispersed, and then a scream sounded. Lord Jean was bounced away and fell to the ground. The water mist immediately rushed to the floor and turned into a blurry child's shadow. At this time, Lord Jean gritted his teeth and pushed out both hands at the same time. His palms emitted a soft white light, and he slapped the shadow again. With this slap, the shadow disappeared into thin air. Only then did Lord Jean stop and sit on the ground, coughing non-stop. Lord Jean! It's okay, it's not a big deal. Lord Jin's face was pale. Just rest for a while. Fortunately, you were willing to come to me. Otherwise, in 1 or 2 years, I'm afraid I won't be able to subdue this wronged ghost. Lord Jean, you really have this ability. F***ck, little bastard, Do you think I just made up a story? Lord Jean was so angry that he coughed repeatedly. I didn't mean that. Taisetsu quickly shook his head. Lord Jean said, but you're fine for the time being. It's only for the time being. This ghost's resentment is too strong. What I just scattered is probably just its resentment. It won't be long before it comes back to haunt you again. If I didn't bring you to this temple hall, and have this string of Buddha beads consecrated by the senior monk, I wouldn't be able to save you. Taisetsu, after you reconcile with Xiao Yuqing tonight, you have to stay with me for a while. Otherwise, it will pester you again. Lord Jean, Taisetsu thought for a while, you have this ability. Then, can you release its soul? Lord Jean was stunned. I just saw that the resentment revealed its original body. It looks like a child. Is it the one who drowned that year? Taisetsu nodded. The one who started the trouble should end it. Lord Jean nodded. Well, this old man will accompany you through this tribulation. Take it as a thank you gift for remembering to send me a birthday cake. The bell suddenly rang. In the lobby of the club, Miss Maid, who was sitting quietly, suddenly opened her eyes. Gradually, light began to appear in the dim surroundings. The white candles hanging on the candlesticks on the wall were automatically lit one by one. A cloud of black fog stopped in the air like a tornado, and then slowly descended. Black Soul number 18 greets Miss Yu Yi. Number 18, what's the matter? Yu Yi looked at Black Soul number 18, just looked at her. Black Soul number 18 wasn't used to it. This puppet had appeared in the club after her, and it had always been cold. But recently it had started to smile. But in essence, it was still the cold puppet that Black Soul number 18 knew. Is the master not here? Black Soul number 18 asked carefully. Master has something to do and will leave for a few days. Yu Yi said indifferently, just tell me what you want. Here's the thing. Black Soul number 18 said directly, I want to get a material, preferably one that can be used with the casting of Book of the Dead. What's the exchange price? Yu Yi tilted her head and looked at Black Soul number 18. The dim light in her blue eyes made Black Soul number 18's heart skip a beat. Number 18, are you playing the game of creating magicians again? Who do you like this time? That professor? Or Wang Yuechuan? Black Soul number 18 said with a sinister smile, it doesn't matter who wins the fight between two poisonous insects. Yu Yi nodded and said, the material you want, there is one in this city. It's a black diamond. Now it's in the hands of a businessman's son who has just inherited the inheritance. His name is Lu Zixing and he's a gambler. You don't need to exchange it. Get some money yourself and buy it from the businessman's son. He will sell anything for money. Or you can directly disclose it to these two poisonous insects and see if they will cross the boundary for power. That's great. Black Soul number 18 nodded. Then, I won't disturb Miss Yu Yi. Raising customers. This was the practice of most Black Soul envoys. Black Soul number 18 thought, although the new master changed, Miss Yu Yi didn't have any intention to change her behavior. She was still the same as before. You can leave. Miss Maid nodded. After the Black Soul envoys left, the lights in the club hall went out one by one. Miss Maid still sat in the original place, just like before. When will I come back? Although it was only 3 days, she felt so lonely. This mood, Yu Yi gently held her chest and slowly closed her eyes. Chapter 633. It was still the Hongfu building. Before arriving, Xiao Yuqing thought about it. He was very surprised that Taisetsu could invite Master Jean. Although this old man had not shown himself in the past 10 years and looked like he was waiting for death in the nursing home, he still had to give this old guy some face. Fortunately, his idiotic subordinates got lost last night and went somewhere else, so they didn't make a move. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to deal with this old man today. It was just, there were road signs along the way. Those guys were also locals. How could they get lost? Damn it. Xiao Yuqing put a smile on his face, then pushed open the door of the private room. He immediately laughed and said, Oh, Master Jean! Master Jean, I haven't seen you for a long time. I'm sorry for being late. I will punish myself with 3 cups of wine later. Why haven't you ordered yet? Waiter! Daz and Lord Jean had already arrived a step earlier. They sat here and drank tea. Xiao Yuqing, don't shout first. Master Jean smiled and waved at Xiao Yuqing. Xiao Yuqing sat down directly, but he did not look at Taisetsu from beginning to end. Come, Master Jean, I'll serve you tea. Hee, it's rare that you still have the heart. Master Jean smiled insincerely. Xiao Yuqing also smiled insincerely. What are you talking about? When I first came out, although I was not your underling, at least the hall and your mountain can be regarded as a brotherly alliance. You are an elder. You are always an elder. You are really considerate. There are very few young people like you nowadays. Master Jean nodded. Xiao Yuqing, since you also said that there is some relationship between us, then shouldn't you be more careful when doing things? Master Jean, look at what you are saying. Xiao Yuqing smiled and said, Am I the kind of person who does things without discretion? If so, I would not be able to survive. Master Jean narrowed his eyes. Then you and Taisetsu are not here to have a toast today. Of course. Xiao Yuqing slapped the table and said, Didn't we come here today to chat and drink tea with you? That, Taisetsu, don't you agree? Taisetsu took a deep breath and nodded. He then raised his glass to Xiao Yuqing and said, Director Xiao, please forgive me for offending you. This is my toast to you. It's nothing. We're all civilized people. Xiao Yuqing didn't put on any airs and drank it directly. Then, he suddenly said with a displeased expression, But I say, Taisetsu, you're really not that nice. If you said that you were Master Jin's man, then we wouldn't have to be so stiff yesterday, right? Forget it, I will find someone else to do the original job. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. I'll leave it for you. We're all family, so we'll earn money together. We'll talk about it later. Taisetsu nodded calmly. At this time, Xiao Yuqing said again, Old Master Jean, you're wrong too. Lord Jean asked curiously, Why? Is there anything wrong with this old man? Xiao Yuqing said, Isn't that so? Why didn't you say that Taisetsu is also your man? If I had known, I wouldn't have let him do those tiring jobs in the past. Aren't you tricking me? If word got out that day that I, Xiao Yuqing, am not good to you, Master Jin's man, how can I face others? Tell me, isn't it your fault? Okay. Lord Jean chuckled. It does sound a little like that. Well, I'll punish myself with 3 glasses later. How can 3 glasses be enough? Xiao Yuqing looked unhappy. He looked at Master Jin's frown and laughed. Of course it's no return until we're drunk, right? This meal took a long time. It was said that no return until we're drunk, but basically, people with good alcohol tolerance could only get 30% drunk. After Xiao Yuqing's driver picked him up, Big Head dared to come out and quietly picked up Master Jean and Taisetsu. In the car, Master Jean was counting the Buddhist beads. His face was rosy and he smiled. This Xiao Yuqing is a character. You saw it tonight. This poisonous snake. This matter is probably not so simple. However, he won't dare to really mess around. This person is a bit arrogant. I saw people in the underworld when they came to celebrate my birthday a few years ago, but they weren't so arrogant. And Taisetsu, you should avoid contact with him as much as possible in the future. I can see that too. Taisetsu nodded. Old man, where are we going now? Big Head turned around and asked. Master Jean said indifferently, Go back to my place. Big Head, you stay at my place tonight. There are some things I need you to do for me tonight. Okay. Big Head laughed and said, Old man, do you want me to scrub your back? Why? Do you want to ask for a job from me? Master Jean smiled and said, Is it because you see that this old man's broken face is still a bit useful, so you have other thoughts? He. Drive. We can talk about it later. Master Jean waved his hand. Taisetsu did not get involved in the conversation between Master Jean and Big Head. He just sat silently by the side, holding a key in his hand. This was given to him by Luochio. He thought of it at this time because Xiao Yuqing's matter was considered to be suspended. Taisetsu suddenly didn't know how to return this key to someone else. This kind of house key. The sound of knocking on the door. At this moment, Luochio was looking at the photo album that he found upstairs at his home. There were more photos of his father and his grandparents when they were young. Now it seemed that his father's appearance was really not very similar to his grandparents. Since he accidentally heard this fact from Grandma Xiaochun, Luochio had a feeling that his connection with the modern world had been cut off a lot. It was a very subtle feeling. It didn't seem to be a pity. The degree of surprise in his heart was far less than he imagined. It seemed that he could accept this change subconsciously. But at the same time, another connection with the modern world seemed to be established unconsciously, but the sound of knocking on the door interrupted his thoughts. The person who came to see him so late was not someone else, but Luo Jing, the son of his uncle, Luo Shan. "Brother Jing, why are you looking for me so late at night?" Luochio opened the door to welcome the guest. "You must be tired these 2 days, right?" Luo Jing walked in. Luochio poured tea for him, shook his head, and said, "I didn't do anything. You are the one who is more tired. You haven't rested for a few nights, right?" Luo Jing sighed and then sat here silently. "Well, I'll just sit for a while and be quiet. The atmosphere at home is not very good. It's annoying." "It's okay." Luochio sat down again and looked at the photo album in his hand. Luo Jing looked at Luochio in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. Luochio looked up and asked, "What's the matter?" Luo Jing leaned over at this moment. After swallowing for a while, he asked, "Ai Luochio, you are a scholar. Why don't you give me some advice?" Luochio closed the photo album and smiled. "Tell me about it. Besides, my opinion is not necessarily good. The key is what you think." "I'm just asking." Luo Jing shook his head and then said seriously, "Luochio, do you think I should tell Taisetsu about my grandmother's news?" "Oh, it's my ex-brother-in-law. You met him on the way here. Do you still remember him?" Luochio nodded and suddenly asked, "Then why are you in a dilemma?" "It's because my family doesn't like him," Luo Jing said helplessly, "but to be honest, although Taisetsu did a lot of bad things outside, he was actually very good to us. You saw it too, right? On the day he picked you up, he gave me something and never asked for anything. Sometimes he even gave me money to give to my sister as pocket money." "So you want to call him?" Luo Jing nodded and said, "Yes, after all, even people from the neighboring village will come to offer incense, right? What's more, Taisetsu also had good intentions. If I don't tell him, I feel a little sorry for him. Even if I don't let him come to offer condolences. It's uncomfortable. But I'm afraid that my parents and sister will be uncomfortable and unhappy." Luochio said with a smile, "You seem to care a lot about this ex-brother-in-law of yours?" Luo Jing heaved a sigh of relief and said, "I was only this young when my sister married Taisetsu, right? Back then, I would follow him around every day, feeling like he was a hero. Back then, Taisetsu opened his own garage. Although it wasn't big, it wasn't a problem for him to take care of his family. To tell you the truth, when I was young, I even thought of learning how to repair cars from him when I grew up." "Aren't you doing quite well now?" Luo Jing said, "I'm just trying to make a living. What's so bad about it? Humans have to plan for themselves. We can't always stay in the same spot." Luochio paused and said softly, "But you still can't let go of your brother-in-law, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to me to discuss such matters." "Probably because there's no one at home to talk to?" Luo Jing said, "Actually, it's not easy to talk about it. And I feel that since you have seen Taisetsu, you are at least a bystander or something, so there's no pressure to chat. Of course, I'm not saying that we aren't close. We just don't keep in touch." "Then what do you think of him?" What do I think? Luo Zheng was stunned. He thought for a while in a daze before sighing and saying, I feel that it's a pity. To be honest, I still don't understand why Taisetsu has been such a bastard all these years. In my impression, he isn't that kind of person. In fact, my sister persisted for a period of time after her death. She often went to the prison to visit him, but he didn't see anyone and didn't say anything. It was like he had lost his soul. Right, the divorce was also proposed by Taisetsu in prison. Later, I also told him that he came out, went in, came out again, went in again, and went in again. It was like he had given up on himself. Didn't you ask him? Since you can't figure it out? Luoqiu asked. Luo Jing sighed and said, Yes, why wouldn't I? But when it comes to this topic, he always avoids me. But once, while chatting with him, he seemed to have had too much to drink. He said something like he had to return something to someone and that he had to return it. Then, he collapsed. When he woke up, he didn't say a word. I'm guessing that it might have something to do with Taisetsu and his brother kidnapping and killing the child back then. With that said, Luo Zheng looked at Luoqiu and scratched his head. You don't know, right? I didn't mention it in detail before. Luoqiu smiled and said, Actually, I did look up some old news on my cell phone. To think you could find it. Luo Jing shook his head before his expression turned complicated. That matter was quite a big deal back then. Later, I heard that the child's mother cried herself blind. Then, the child's father's clothing factory went bankrupt. He abandoned his wife and ran off alone, leaving behind a huge pile of debt. I've heard that the child's mother committed suicide several times, right? I think the boss's name was Qinggong or something. I forgot. So that's how it is. Not only did she cause the death of a child, but she also broke up the family. You might not know this, but my sister didn't do well at work back then. She was criticized by people all day and would cry when she returned home. It was only later that she met her new brother-in-law that her days slowly improved. My sister finally started a new life. Actually, sometimes I think that perhaps it's a good thing that my sister didn't insist. Otherwise, she wouldn't have such good days. Let me tell you something. My sister has recently become pregnant. It's been 2 months, but she's a little chubby. After all, she's in her mid-30s. It's normal for her figure to be out of shape. You probably can't tell, right? But let me tell you, my sister was very beautiful when she was young. Do you want supper? Luoqiu stood up and looked at the time before asking Luo Jing. Luo Jing rubbed his stomach. Sigh, that's a pretty good idea. Go ahead and do it. I'll get some beer. You can drink it, right? College students aren't afraid. After all, we are brothers. Sure. After returning to Lord Jin's villa-level nursing home, Lord Jin didn't say anything. He let Taisetsu go to the temple hall alone. Then, he took Big Head to another room and directed this and that. Big Head was sweating from moving things, but he didn't dare to complain. Instead, he asked curiously, Old man, these tables and yellow cloths, what are they? And what's this? Wooden swords? Copper coins? You even know how to perform rituals? It's not a ritual. It's an exorcism. Do you believe it? Lord Jin said with a smile. Big Head looked at the things inside and said, Exorcism, exorcism? Old man, don't scare me. I Big Head am timid. Big Head heard that this old man had some unusual abilities. Of course, it was just a rumor. Don't worry. Even if there are ghosts, you won't see them. Lord Jin took a brush and stuck a little cinnabar on it. He began to write something on the yellow paper while saying, You are dirty and filthy. Ghosts won't come back to you. But if there are ghosts, I won't care if I can't see them? Ghosts can see me. The old master was scared out of his wits. Are you kidding? Lord Jin was too lazy to talk to this guy, but he suddenly asked, Right, has Taisetsu visited Sister Lin recently? Big Head quickly walked to Lord Jin at this moment and lowered his voice, Old man, don't tell Brother Zhe about this, especially don't tell him that I said it. Why? I, this old man, have stepped forward and put in effort. I almost fell down. Am I not qualified to know about this matter? I didn't mean that. Old man, you are definitely qualified. Big Head quickly said. At that time, Taisetsu asked me to do something. He wanted me to register for the Cross Association and let me do some real estate. Where can I get it? If you are looking for girls to vent your anger, I can easily get a dozen, but I really don't know how to do this. If it wasn't because I couldn't find you, and you were willing to take care of these things for old time's sake, how could I, Big Head, do so many things at that time? But you know my brother Zha's temperament. If he wasn't arrested when he was getting the real estate for Sister Lin, he wouldn't have looked for me. Okay. I am asking you. Has Taisetsu gone to see Sister Lin recently? Why are you saying so much? Lord Jean glared at Big Head unhappily. He looked for her. Just yesterday. Big Head nodded. But speaking of it, this Sister Lin is really pitiful. She can't remember that she has a son and a husband who ran away a long time ago. She thinks that she is an old woman who is unlucky, blind, and has no relatives. Obviously, she is a person who is less than 40 years old, but now she looks like a 51. Sure enough, he looked for her. Lord Jean nodded and suddenly said, Big Head, do you still have Sister Lin's birth date? When I got the real estate for her, there was a copy of the ID card, but this isn't the birth date, right? Big Head was stunned. Why do you want to look for it? The ID card is also fine. You use the perpetual calendar to calculate the lunar time for me. Lord Jean glared. Don't ask about other things. Do as I say. In addition, take this talisman. It is for you. What is this? Peace talisman? Yes. There is a female ghost behind you who likes you. She is waiting to flirt with you. Female ghost. Big Head's eyes lit up. This is good. I like it. Lord Jean rolled his eyes and ran out of the yard with a porcelain bowl. He said that he was going to get some dew for his son. In front of the temple, Taisetsu was standing in front of the Guanyin statue according to Lord Jin's instructions. He closed his eyes and emptied his mind. The more he emptied his mind, the clearer some sounds became. It was still when he was in prison. Taisetsu, did you hear it? That child, he came to find me. He came to find me. He came to find me. Brother Zha. When I was sleeping in the cabin last night, I saw it. Along said that he came to take our lives. He also saw it. When I was bathing water. What should we do? What should we do? Little tiger, he hanged himself yesterday. When the prison guard wasn't paying attention, he hanged himself. It came to find me. The next one is me. It's me. My child, give it back to me. God, give it back to me. My child. Taisetsu, do you really want to divorce me? Save me, don't come over. Little tiger, don't be impulsive. Brother Zhe, I heard that Along also died in prison. It was said that he died of illness. Alas, one less acquaintance. Ganjing, thank you. Aunt Lin made delicious food for you. It would be great if Aunt Lin could really have a son like you. You are so good child. Aunt Lin, actually what's wrong? No, nothing. Wouldn't a policeman's son like you have some opinions about a prisoner like me? But you are out now, aren't you? Taisetsu suddenly opened his eyes and knelt down in front of the Guanyin statue. Chapter 634. Luo Zheng's alcohol tolerance was not as bad as he said. Of course, most of the beer was drunk by him, which may have something to do with it. It was almost 12 o'clock. Luo Zheng was drunk and unconscious. Luoqiu did not intend to disturb him, just covered him with a quilt and began to tidy up the living room. Brother-in-law, what happened to you? Luoqiu stopped and looked at Luo Zheng. Luo Zheng was just drunk and said something in his sleep, then moved his body and fell asleep. There was a rumbling sound outside the house, which was the sound of thunder in the distance. Luocchio opened the front door and cast his eyes on the dark night sky. There was thunder, maybe it would rain soon, and the wind suddenly became cold. On the other side of the mountain in the distance, a blue-black gas turned into a beam of light and hit the night sky. It was a breath that ordinary people could not peek into. It was an extremely strong resentment, and the source was the reservoir that had been built for decades on the mountain. Boss Luo could even clearly see dozens, hundreds, or even hundreds of pale, stiff, painful, and even distorted faces in this blue-black resentment. They finally gathered and turned into a bigger face. Round eyes, round mouth. Behind its back, it was as if everything had been sucked away, leaving behind only this empty shell of a face. It was galloping, dragging a long blue and black gas at the end. In an instant, it swept over the mountain and descended over Luochio's village. Then, like a tornado, it rolled down and wrapped around Luochio's entire house in an instant. You fell in love with Taisetsu, but I didn't do anything to you. Of course, because you didn't do anything, I allowed you to stroll around my house before. But now, what are you doing? Luochio asked calmly. These blue-black gas were spinning faster and faster at the moment. Do you want to buy something from me? Guess? Luochio asked for the second time. However, in an instant, the cold wind was blowing, and the sound was like crying and roaring. The flying sand and stones were squeezing toward Luochio at the same time. It seems that only the resentment is driving it. Luochio shook his head. Since you don't want to buy anything, please go back. Come back when you need something. However, the blue-black gas was shrinking, turning into countless looming arms, grabbing toward Luochio at the same time. I said, since you don't want to do business, please go back. As for how you died in the reservoir, drowned or wronged, it's not something I am interested in. So, please don't disturb the people here, and don't scratch the osmanthus trees near my house. Many osmanthus flowers have fallen. Luochio looked away, looking at the arms that were about to touch him, and said indifferently, Please don't touch me. The arms that stretched out in the air, under Luochio's gaze, trembled crazily and shrank, and finally retracted back into the huge face layer by layer. It let out a shrill cry, as if it was severely injured, and rolled up into the night sky, flying away into the distance. Luochio heaved a sigh of relief and waved his hand. Then everything here was restored to its original state. Those hanging branches were also connected back to their original positions. Luochio closed the door, and at this time, it was drizzling outside the house. Luo Zheng, who was lying on the bench, suddenly sat up in a daze. Luochio, drink more. Then he fell asleep again in a daze. Luochio smiled, and waved his hand to let the fallen quilt cover Luo Zheng's body again. Then he sat down, and drank a cup of tea under the light of a lamp. Once again, he flipped through the old photo album at home. With the faint sound of thunder, Lord Jean walked into the temple with a dignified expression. Hearing the footsteps, Taisetsu stood up, and his face didn't look good. Lord Jean, I feel uneasy, but I don't know why. Of course. Lord Jean sighed, I also feel uneasy. In this kind of weather, I'm afraid the visitor is not good. Already here? Taisetsu looked around nervously. Lord Jean said solemnly, Taisetsu, listen to me. I have just asked Big Head carefully. In addition to you, Along and a few others died one after another, and the way they died was not normal. I thought about it for a day, and I have some ideas. In the reservoir where the drowned child was, there have always been people who fell into the water. Of course, some people deserved it, and some. But over the years, a lot of resentment has accumulated in the reservoir. I'm afraid it has long been a mixed water ghost, or even a malicious ghost with great resentment. If a malicious ghost doesn't take a life, it will never stop, and it will easily hate all the people in front of it. Last night, I dispersed the resentment on your body, and I guess this guy won't let me go easily today. Lord Jean, I've implicated you. Lord Jean shook his head. Don't say these useless things. Things have come to this point, so just face it calmly. Okay, tell me, what do you want me to do? At this time, Lord Jean suddenly took out a simple plastic bag that could be found in an ordinary convenience store. Put this on. This. Put it on? Yes. Put it on and then tie it tightly. Lord Jean nodded. I want you to suffocate and experience the feeling of death. Ordinary people can't see the boundary between yin and yang, but there is a situation where ordinary people can see it, and that is when they are on the verge of death. But don't worry, suffocation won't kill you immediately. When your consciousness is unconscious because of suffocation, it is the moment when your 3 souls and 7 spirits can temporarily get rid of your body. This moment is quite long for you, but when you see it from the outside, it only takes a while, maybe less than 10 seconds. Taisetsu grasped the plastic bag in his hand, bit it, and said, Okay, then I will do as Lord Jean said. But I'm fine like this? Of course not. Lord Jean said, I still have to let your 3 souls and 7 spirits be able to move, so that you can face this malicious ghost directly. In addition, when you see it, you have to be like this. With that said, Lord Jean walked to the front of the Guanyin statue in front of him and moved the statue away. He took out a pot that looked like a clay tile under the jar, about the size of a palm. I will put it on the roof. I have already set up the altar on the lower floor. What you have to do is to provoke this malicious ghost and lead it to the pot. I can't do anything to this malicious ghost's body, but I should be able to barely keep it. After Lord Jean carefully told Taisetsu some details that he needed to pay attention to, he let Taisetsu put the plastic bag over his head first, but he didn't tie it. At this time, Lord Jean took off Taisetsu's coat, stuck his fingers with cinnabar, and quickly wrote a lot of Taoist characters on his back. He read quickly, Today there is he Huifan, the wife of Lin family's success, born on the 19th of August. The year of birth, 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 the year of birth. At this time, Lord Jean pressed his hands on Taisetsu's shoulders at the same time and sang loudly. Cheong-lu, jadeite house, green mist fragrance, purple orchid knot, red myrtle pouch. The cloud chariot fairy did not know her, so sending her thanks was ridiculous. If you don't drink cane syrup and weep in the cold, you won't understand the craftiness of a young man. You have the Penglai Palace in heaven, but you have the ghosts of Ma Wei on earth. A chilly wind suddenly blew outside the house. Lord Jean suddenly shouted, Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Lin Songping, the son of the Lin family's success, today is the time for you to claim your life. Why don't you show yourself now? In an instant, a wave of greenish-black accompanied by bursts of thunder appeared in front of the villa of the nursing home like rolling sand and dust. Taisetsu, tie a knot. Remember, you must be fast, don't hesitate. Evil ghosts have no humanity, no heart, only resentment. No need to pity them. Taisetsu silently exhaled and tightened the bag around his neck. As he breathed, the oxygen in this narrow space was quickly consumed. Taisetsu painfully resisted the instinctive urge to tear the plastic bag. He clenched his teeth and the bag on his head shrank and contracted. Under the great pain and discomfort, Taisetsu realized that a strange feeling was slowly spreading throughout his body. His pupils were wide open, but he couldn't see anything. When he finally felt the existence of the line of sight, he was already standing on the ground again, probably in the state of the soul that Lord Jean had mentioned. He was still in the villa, but it was different from the villa he knew. Now, the villa he was in was ruined, desolate, and full of greenish-black moss. It was like a ruin that had been eroded for decades after being bombed by bombs. He subconsciously looked up and saw a faint golden light shining from above. That was the location of the pot arranged by Lord Jean. The golden light flashed and disappeared, but Taisetsu had accurately remembered its location. the rolling greenish-black fog on the ground. At this time, in front of Taisetsu, a small figure gradually appeared. Taisetsu subconsciously took a step back, but soon stabilized his body. He took a deep breath. He just did it subconsciously. I know I'm the only one left in the end. You definitely won't let me go, right? Taisetsu Wei. The voice from its mouth was like a child's voice, innocent, but with bursts of ghastly ghost. It kept calling this name. Wei Taisetsu Wei. Wei Taisetsu Wei. Wei Taisetsu Wei. Stop shouting. Come if you want. Taisetsu shouted loudly. It suddenly opened its mouth and flew over. Its hands grabbed Taisetsu's neck, and it kept shouting, Wei Taisetsu Wei. Wei Taisetsu Wei, yes? You should hate me like this. Yes. Taisetsu showed an extremely painful expression, and at the same time, his hands tightly grasped its hands. I don't blame you. I won't blame you in my life. But, in the room where the altar was placed, Big Head looked out of the window anxiously. Grandpa, what's going on? Is that damn thing coming? I'm so anxious. Mr. Jean, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. It's coming. Really? Big Head's heart suddenly jumped, but he still said worriedly, But is this pot really useful? Why don't we do it another day? Let's change to a stronger one, at least iron if not steel. What do you know? Mr. Jean shouted at this time. This is an ancient object produced in a tomb of the Song dynasty in Daxing, Anling before the Reform. I spent a lot of effort to buy a batch from Mrs. Zhang Lilanfang. I put it under the statue of Guanyin and read it every day to strengthen its spirituality. It took me more than 30 years to polish it. How can it be useless? But I really don't understand. Who is Zhang Lilanfang? I'm just worried about my brother Taisetsu. But Big Head didn't dare to speak, because Mr. Jin's expression suddenly became extremely dignified. He sighed heavily. Taisetsu, you stubborn guy. I asked you to lead it here, not to let you die together with it. Big Head couldn't see it, but it didn't mean that Mr. Jean couldn't feel it. Taisetsu's soul was now entangled with the ghost's soul. Taisetsu couldn't get rid of it, but Mr. Jean wrote so many cinnabar characters on Taisetsu's back, at least he could protect himself. Mr. Jin's eyes flashed with anger at this time. He gritted his teeth, took off the Buddha beads in his hand, and then pierced them between his fingers. Big Head finally saw an incredible scene that made him keep rubbing his eyes. These Buddha beads that looked like they were made of ordinary red sandalwood were exuding flowing golden light at this time. Then, Lord Jean shouted and threw out the Buddhist bead chain. The Buddhist bead chain instantly turned into a solemn arhat and turned into a golden light that flew away. In the space of the ghosts, Brother Zha's solemn Luohan appeared, as if he had smashed this ghostly space, and directly grabbed Taisetsu and the ghost. The Luohan shouted like the evening drum and morning bell, shaking the ghost's body. The Luohan suddenly raised his hand and directly slapped the ghost down. A large amount of greenish-black gas crazily poured into the placed pot at this time. The pot was like a rainbow sucking in water, and it didn't take long for all the greenish-black gas to be absorbed into it. At this time, a yellow talisman turned into a golden light and directly stuck to the pot. The pot shook crazily at this time, and it calmed down after a long time. Finally, all of this seemed to have calmed down. The Buddha beads that disappeared appeared again and fell to the ground, but they had been broken one by one. Mr. Jean showed an extremely distressed look. This was an extremely precious item given by an eminent monk when he traveled in Tibet when he was young. Now that it was broken and couldn't be used again, he naturally felt like his heart was bleeding. Mr. Jean suddenly spat out a mouthful of pus and blood. In an instant, he seemed to have aged 10 years. He held the altar and couldn't stop gasping, like a person with one foot in the grave. Old man, what's wrong with you? Don't worry about me first. Quickly go and see Taisetsu, let him breathe. Beat his chest with your fist. After tossing and turning for most of the night, Taisetsu slowly woke up. He was still in the temple hall. He glanced at Mr. Jean, who was sitting cross-legged on the futon in front of the guanine statue, and there was already a pot with a yellow talisman on the table. "Old man, how are you?" "I won't die yet, but I'll die soon." Mr. Jean slowly opened his eyes and glared at Taisetsu fiercely. "Fortunately, you didn't worship me as your master, otherwise I would have been angered to death by you sooner or later. Did I ask you to die together with this evil spirit?" Taisetsu silently looked at the pot in front of him. It's already inside?" Mr. Jean sighed and nodded. "It's inside. From now on, you need to worship it every day and use time to slowly wash away its resentment." Must it be here?" Taisetsu asked subconsciously. Mr. Jean frowned. "What do you want to do?" Taisetsu said bitterly, "Old man, I want to take Sister Lin's child home. I really want to." Taisetsu knelt in front of Mr. Jean with his head lowered. Mr. Jin's heartache of the broken Buddha beads suddenly diluted a lot. He sighed, "Silly boy." "Old man, please, Taisetsu kowtows to you." Chapter 635. Early in the morning, Lord Jean collected some morning dew from the flowers and plants outside the villa. He melted a piece of cinnabar and wrote a lot of charms again. He stuck them on the pot that sealed the malicious spirit inside and out. After making a complete set, he handed the pot to Taisetsu. "Remember, you must not remove the charms on it. Otherwise, you and I will be in danger." Lord Jin's face was very pale and weak. Daz held it with both hands as if it was a treasure. "When you put it in Mrs. Lin's house, you must hide it well and put it in a position where it can shine on Chuyang every day. Lastly, it must be in the east." Lord Jean reminded him again. "Don't worry, I will do it well." Taisetsu nodded. "And this scripture book, you take it and read it to Mrs. Lin. Then, let her memorize it and read it every morning and night." Lord Jean gave Taisetsu a booklet. "Mrs. Lin is the mother of this malicious spirit. As long as she can read it every day honestly, the effect will be better than leaving it with me." "Lord Jean, Taisetsu owes you." Lord Jean shook his head and said, "Taisetsu, in fact, even if you didn't say it, I was going to send the pot to Mrs. Lin. But since you've said it first, then we'll do as you say. You know, the heart of the world's parents, the power of this heart cannot be underestimated. The Tao of heaven and earth can never be compared to the true feelings of human beings in the world. After a few days, when I have rested enough, I will make some charms and send it. I will use it to wipe the pot every day and speed up the purification process. As for how to make Mrs. Lin read it every day, you can think of a way yourself." "But Lord Jean, no matter what," Lord Jean shook his head and waved his hand. "Okay, let's not talk about this. I am tired and need to rest. Big Head, drive Taisetsu there. After a night of tossing and turning, I am afraid my old bones will fall apart." Lord Jean massaged his waist while coughing and slowly walked upstairs with the help of the handrail. Soon after, Big Head's beloved car, the Passat, drove out of the villa. Lord Jean sat alone in the armchair in his room, rocking slowly, as if he was sleeping. He suddenly sighed. The old man couldn't help but think back to 20 years ago in the past. Back then, in order to fight for territory, they had done many things that went against their conscience, and the fights between the gangs had resulted in even more casualties. And the reservoir that was built was naturally the most convenient and best place to dispose of corpses. But Lord Jean didn't intend to tell these things to anyone. He didn't care if the other old people would say anything. At the very least, he planned to bury them in the ground. Out of habit, he wanted to count his Buddha beads, but only then did he realize that his Buddha beads had already shattered. Lord Jean slowly closed his eyes. "Master Yang Taizi, you said I don't have the fate to become an immortal. It seems to be true. Everything seemed to be nothing more than deceiving oneself and deceiving others." In the car, Taisetsu held the sealed pot in silence. Big Head wanted to liven up the atmosphere, but he didn't know what to say. He could only say, "Brother Zhe, it's rare to solve such a big problem. Why don't we go eat skewers tonight? It's my treat. We haven't had a drink together for a long time. Big Head, stop in front. I want to buy some mung bean cakes. Sister Lin likes to eat them. Taisetsu suddenly said. Big Head sighed and silently stopped the car on the side of the road. Taisetsu wrapped the pot in his coat. Since he left Lord Jin's villa, he had never let it leave his hand. Then I'll go to the public toilet over there. I've been suffocating since this morning, Big Head said, then got off the car and walked over. Taisetsu didn't say anything. He just nodded and walked into the cake shop. A box of mung bean cakes, 12 yuan. The aunt who bought the cakes sent out the packed mung bean cake. When she was about to collect the money, her face suddenly changed. Taisetsu was stunned. But in that moment, he felt his shoulders were pressed by two hands with great strength. Taisetsu turned around and frowned instantly. This was because he saw two uniformed policemen standing behind him. Comrade, what's the matter? One of the policemen said, You are Taisetsu Wei? Taisetsu nodded. The other policeman said directly, Taisetsu Wei, please come back with us. Yesterday, another unit in Fuyang district was burglarized. Someone claimed to have seen you sneaking around. So please come back with us to assist in the investigation. Comrade, did you make a mistake? Taisetsu said seriously. I couldn't have been in Fuyang district last night. I was in a nursing home. I have someone who can prove it. Even if you don't have proof, you still have to go back. You have to confront the person who claimed to have seen you. Comrade, you really made a mistake. Why would I steal something? Humph? You wouldn't? The policeman sneered and said, Are you a habitual offender? When someone reported you, we already checked your file. What, you don't want to cooperate and help us with our work? Comrade, there must be some misunderstanding. Taisetsu frowned and said, Also, I have something urgent to do. Really? Taisetsu Wei, please cooperate with our work. Don't try to play tricks. The policeman suddenly shouted. Daz took a deep breath, nodded, and said, Okay, but can I put something down? It's in the car outside. It belongs to my friend. I can go back with you. Leave what? The policeman suddenly shouted. What are you holding in your hand? It's wrapped so tightly. It can't be stolen goods, right? Comrade, it definitely can't be stolen. It really can't be stolen. Taisetsu Wei panicked. Give it to me. Don't come over. No one is allowed to touch it. Taisetsu Wei stared angrily. The two policemen immediately tensed up and shouted, Taisetsu Wei, what are you doing? This is the street and we are the police. If you don't cooperate, don't blame us. Okay, I'll go back with you, and this really can't be stolen goods. Taisetsu Wei opened the clothes wrapped around the pot. Look, does this thing look like stolen goods? What is this? Bone ash. It belongs to a friend of mine. Aren't we going to send it back home? If you don't believe me, then I'll open it for you to see. Taisetsu Wei said indifferently and planned to open the thing. The two police officers immediately had some misgivings about something as unlucky as bone ashes. When they saw that the pot was covered with talismans, they became even more fearful. One of the police officers simply snorted and said, No need. Whether it's stolen goods or not, we'll also take it back for investigation. Take it away. One of the policemen took Taisetsu Wei to the police car parked on the side of the road, while the other policeman made a phone call outside. A flattering smile. Hello. Master Xiao, it's just as you said. This Taisetsu Wei is with Big Head now. When Big Head's car appeared, we noticed it. Now Wei Taisetsu Wei is in our car. Then, Director Xiao, we'll take Taisetsu Wei back for interrogation now. Do you have any other ideas? Don't go too far. This kid has someone protecting him. If you make it too ugly, you won't be able to get over it for my sake. As for you, just interrogate him properly, then lock him up for 2 or 3 days. Then say that you've investigated thoroughly, release him, and teach him a little lesson. After that, just pretend nothing happened. The policeman chuckled, It's fine. There are many cases of theft, and this is a repeat offender. Even if you have to lock him up for a few more days, it won't be a problem. We'll do our best. Okay, the next time I have a chance to have a meal with your director, I'll say a few good words. But remember, you're doing your job. It's normal. You're working hard without letting go of any clues. It has nothing to do with me. For you policemen to solve a case, it's normal to first look for repeat offenders like this, right? Yes. Director Xiao, you're right. We're doing our job seriously. Then we'll take Taisetsu way back. Go. Xiao Yuqing turned off his phone. Sitting at home, he opened a bottle of red wine and drank it in a good mood. How to say it? Although Taisetsu Wei was protected by Old Man Jin, and Xiao Yuqing didn't want to go too far. But if he didn't teach this troublesome Taisetsu a lesson, Xiao Yuqing wouldn't feel good. There was no other reason than feeling bad. Chapter 636. Big Head walked out of the restroom while holding his pant. He happened to see a police car pass by him. Big Head was stunned, but he saw Taisetsu sitting in the car. He quickly ran to the bakery and asked. Only then did he know when and how Taisetsu was taken away. F***ck. This is obviously a false accusation. Big Head frowned. Xiao Yuqing, this old fox, really dared to play dirty. Big Head hurriedly drove the car back to the nursing home. Kacha, the iron gate of the detention room was closed. Taisetsu frowned. Not only was he here, but there were also two other men. Taisetsu grabbed the iron bar and asked the police, "Comrade, aren't you going to interrogate me first? Why did you lock me up? What are you nagging about? Do you want to plead guilty so soon? We don't have time now. There aren't enough interrogation rooms. When we call you, we will call you. Just stay here. Comrade! Comrade!" Taisetsu couldn't help but shout, "That pot is really my friend's ashes. Don't break it." "Quiet. Such an unlucky thing, who would touch it? If you make any more noise, there will be no food for you. Comrade! Comrade!" But the person had already left. Taisetsu hit the iron gate angrily. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't cause trouble for others, he might have resisted before he was caught. But he had the pot in his hand. If he messed around and broke it, is it Xiao Yuqing, this old fox? Taisetsu hit the iron gate again. "Hey, brother, are you very noisy? Can't you see that I can't sleep because of your noise?" A man who was lying down sat up at this time. He cracked his fingers. "It seems that I have to teach you a good lesson." Another guy with a thick waist and thick arms sat up at this time, revealing a grin. They approached Taisetsu at the same time. President Xiao said not to go too far. "Don't worry, those two guys know their limit." "All right then, I'll ask around tomorrow and release him." President Xiao said that there's someone who's protecting her in case things get out of hand. All right, it's just a few beatings, it's nothing. Besides, President Xiao is Chief Cheng's brother-in-law. What's there to be afraid of? Alright, do you want to put this thing here? This damn thing, don't tell me you're planning to bring it home? The policeman picked up the pot on the table and shook it casually. "It's so light. It's empty. There's nothing inside. Don't mess with this thing. It's a little annoying to look at." "I say, you brat, are you afraid of this thing?" His companion laughed heartily before tossing it over to the other party. "It's really empty. If you don't believe me, take a look for yourself. I say, you few." The man hurriedly caught the pot and broke out in a cold sweat. However, when he saw the smirk on the other party's face, he immediately became angry and threw the pot back at the other party. "Haha, I'm not afraid." He caught it steadily, and then, as if he was performing a circus, he casually threw it a few times. However, for some reason, he seemed to have heard a terrifying ghost-like roar coming from the pot. His hand trembled, and he couldn't hold the pot firmly, and it fell to the ground. "Damn, Mickey, you bastard! I told you not to play with it." His companion looked at the broken pot on the ground and immediately frowned. However, His companion, Mickey, was looking down at the ground motionlessly. He couldn't help but approach him. "Are you stupid?" Only then did he slowly raise his head. A strange smile appeared on his face, and a greenish-black light flashed in his eyes. The two big men were holding their stomachs and lying on the ground, groaning in pain. As for Taisetsu, he was rubbing his wrist. The two big men used a lot of strength. His left wrist was actually sprained. However, he had always been doing physical work. Although he was already over 30 years old, Taisetsu's physical strength didn't deteriorate much compared to when he was young. It was probably because his fighting experience and reaction weren't as nimble as when he was young. That was why he was slightly injured. "I don't want to make trouble. Let's just stay here. Do you hear me?" Taisetsu looked at the two and said in a low voice. "Yes, yes." The two big men painfully raised their heads and nodded. One had to know that this was a tough nut to crack. Only a ghost would accept this job. In their hearts, they had long been cursing the guy outside with dog blood. Taisetsu sighed and leaned against the iron gate. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt uneasy. He saw the two big men who originally sat down suddenly raise their heads and looked at him with dull eyes. Taisetsu's uneasiness instantly rose to the peak. The two big men in front of him reached out their hands at the same time and shouted his name in a terrifying voice. "Taisetsu Wei. Wei Taisetsu Wei, could it be?" Taisetsu had a bad idea in his heart. However, the two big men in front of him crazily threw themselves at him and even strangled his neck. Facing this situation, Taisetsu could only instinctively fight back. He fiercely punched one of the big men's face and directly bent the man's nose bridge. This guy seemed to be unconscious and didn't reduce the strength of his hand at all. Taisetsu had no choice but to continue to beat the man's face crazily. It wasn't until the strength of the man's hand seemed to relax a little that Daz seized the opportunity. He bent his waist and stepped on the two people's stomachs at the same time with both legs. He suddenly stretched hard and used all his strength to finally kick the two people away. After the two big men fell to the ground, they quickly got up again. Taisetsu frowned. His body flashed and the two people directly hit the iron gate without any sense of reason. Daz clenched his fists, preparing for the next battle, but unexpectedly, the two men suddenly fell to the ground at this time, motionless. At the same time, the lock on the iron gate opened automatically with a click. The iron gate creaked and opened automatically. The iron gate creaked and it was pushed open automatically. Daz touched his neck in surprise, and his heart trembled. He took a deep breath and walked out vigilantly. Along the way, some of the different detention rooms were empty, and some had people inside, but at this time they also fell to the ground. The last door was also open at this time. Taisetsu thought for a while, and took a baton from a policeman on the ground and held it in his hand. He finally walked to the empty hall of the police station. However, the door was indeed tightly shut and couldn't be opened no matter how hard he tried. The landline phone in the reporting room couldn't be made either. "Is there anyone? Is there anyone?" Taisetsu walked alone in the corridor where the lights were flickering and the windows were tightly shut. He tried to hit the glass with the baton in his hand, but it couldn't even break the glass. "Is there anyone?" Finally, he found the office where the two policemen who caught him were, but found that the two people fell to the ground at the same time, motionless. On the ground there was the broken pot. "Old man, how is it?" "No, the phone can't be reached at all." No one answered. In Big Head's car, Jean Yi frowned. "This is not good. Is there a situation?" "What situation will there be? You mean Xiao Yuqing may let someone do something to Brother Zhe inside?" Taisetsu said angrily. "That's okay, I'm afraid." Jean Yi said seriously. "The evil spirit in the police station is strong, and the resentment is strong. If that thing comes out in such a place, its power will increase greatly." As Jean Yi said, he subconsciously looked in the direction of the so-called police station. Suddenly, his face changed dramatically. He pinched his fingers, then whispered a few words. Finally, his fingers touched his eyes. In his sight, he saw a terrifying greenish-black gas shrouding the sky at this time. It's too late. What's too late? You mean that thing has been released? What should we do? Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. We can only resign ourselves to fate. Jinyi closed his eyes. It can only depend on Taisetsu's own fortune. Big Head hit the steering wheel angrily. This is not my brother's problem. Why do they have to find him? He has been suffering like this for so many years. Why don't they let him go? Big Head, what exactly happened in the past? Tell me about it. Maybe you can find out where the crux is, and maybe you can think of a way. Big Head knew that he couldn't hide it anymore, so he frowned and said, "At that time, I was unlucky. I was caught selling pirated discs and was locked up for a few days. I wasn't there when they kidnapped me. But later, when I came out, I asked about it when I visited the prison." Big Head quickly recalled, "Only Ah Long was willing to tell me. At that time, Brother Zhe had already talked to Sang Kuan. But later, Xiao Hu was blinded by money, so he took a risk and planned to get the ransom from Lin Qinggong. But I don't know how Sang Kuan found out about this, but he also wanted the money. However, that Lin Qinggong actually quietly called the police. On the day of the ransom, the police were already in ambush, so it became a three-way chase. Xiao Hu succeeded in getting the ransom. Speaking of which, Xiao Hu was too crazy. He actually asked for 3 million in cash. Well, I know, in the process of this matter there was a fight. Xiao Hu alone killed several of Sang Kuan's henchmen. In the end, Xiao Hu took the child and escaped to an abandoned house by the reservoir. The police sealed the mountain and searched step by step, and finally found them. Chapter 637. Captain, it's all locked down. The helicopter is in position. Remember, the most important thing is to ensure the safety of the hostage. In addition, the criminal is extremely dangerous. He stole a gun. Once you find him, kill him immediately after ensuring the safety of the hostage. Comrade! Comrade! You must save my child. I beg you. The woman knelt on the ground and begged. Sister-in-law, don't be like this. We will definitely save him. The man helped the woman up and hurriedly comforted her. At this moment, a loud sound suddenly echoed in the mountains. The captain's face changed slightly. The gunshot, is it from that direction? The gunshot could reverberate, but the screams could not travel so far. Taisetsu painfully covered his left shoulder. There was no doubt that it was hit by a bullet. In the messy mountain forest, Xiao Hu's eyes were red and bloodshot. He was strangling the child in his hand. His hand that had just fired the gun was trembling, but he did not put it down. I said, "Don't force me." Xiao Hu. You're crazy. This is Brother Zhe. You really shot. Put down the gun. Put it down. I have no choice. Don't force me. Go. Go. The young Taisetsu gritted his teeth. He was sweating, but he grabbed Ah Long's arm and stood up with difficulty. Xiao Hu, stop playing. Come back with me. Your wife is still waiting for you in the hospital. She is about to give birth. Have you forgotten? Come, go back, stop playing. Brother Zhe, I. Xiao Hu stepped back step by step. Taisetsu and the others slowly approached. But at this moment, a rumbling sound was heard. They could see a helicopter flying over. The person on the helicopter had already used a loudspeaker and shouted, "Put down the weapon, put down the hostage, you can't escape. I repeat, put down the weapon, put down. Xiao Hu, stop fooling around." Taisetsu was still approaching, and the brothers behind him were also slowly approaching. The child was crying in horror and his face was pale. Xiao Hu glanced at the big bag on his back. In it was the ransom of 3 million yuan. But facing the helicopter that was about to arrive, and the police at the foot of the mountain, in front of the brothers of many years, he fiercely fired a few shots at the ground. Ah! Don't come over. If you come any closer, I'll shoot you. Or me. I'll beat him to death. The gun was once again pressed against the child's head. Little Tiger stepped back step by step to escape. Taisetsu's arm was bleeding. Everyone tore his clothes and tied it directly to his shoulder. Along said in horror, Brother Jura, we can't do anything about this anymore. Let's hide before the police find us. No. I should have watched you send her back. It's my fault. Taisetsu pushed Along away. My fault. I'll make up for it. I can't watch Little Tiger continue to make mistakes. You don't have to follow me. You can go down the mountain from there. No. If you don't leave, we won't leave either. What did we say about killing a chicken head and burning yellow paper? We'll share blessings and misfortunes together? Those were the days when he was in high spirits. In the Jianghu, there was no such thing as revenge. Taisetsu sat silently on the chair in the office. No matter how hard he tried, there was no way to leave this place. The two policemen lying on the ground showed no signs of waking up. Taisetsu silently looked at a photo on his wallet. Wallet and some of his belongings were found here. The two policemen just left his things here and didn't seem to have time to deal with them. His wife, his child, and him. This was a family photo taken during the first month of his child's birth. Taisetsu's eyes were a little hazy as he stroked this memory. A line from a movie in the early years suddenly floated in Taisetsu's mind. Sooner or later, you'll have to return to where you came from. Every person in the underworld should be able to chew this line in the end. It wasn't just a line, right? Wanzai always let me bask in the sun, I play bask in the sun. Sword light. Let me break through, singing the lyrics of Big Head's favorite song. A drop of tears slowly fell from Taisetsu's eyes. The two policemen lying on the ground suddenly propped themselves up with their hands. Their limbs were very stiff, and their movements were also stiff. Their bones made cracking sounds, and then they finally stood up unsteadily. Taisetsu silently looked at them, and suddenly he wasn't afraid anymore. He smiled meaninglessly, and casually took out a cigarette from the cigarette box on the table, and lit it for himself. Outside this room, people slowly walked in. Some were in uniforms, some were in suits, some were in prison clothes, some were uncles, some were young people, and even some were sweeping the floor. There was also a chef with a whistle in his hand. People crowded the left and right ends of the corridor, and then approached this small door. Everyone here was chanting the same name. Not orderly, but never interrupted. Wei Taisetsu, Wei Taisetsu, Wei Taisetsu, Wei Taisetsu, no need to call me that again. Taisetsu shook his head. I won't go anywhere, I'll just stay here. This life is yours. He put out the cigarette butt, stood up, and then opened his hands and closed his eyes. Come on. This life is yours. In the future, don't give other people trouble. Wei Taisetsu, give me back my life. A figure with a sharp and hateful voice broke through the crowd. He held a knife in his hand, and directly pierced Taisetsu's abdomen. Taisetsu's face shrunk and his eyes widened, but he didn't make a sound. He just endured it. The room seemed to have been infinitely enlarged. The small office in front of him, in a flash, crazily moved around and became vast and boundless. This vast and boundless place instantly lost everything it was supposed to have, turning into a dull gray. The floor turned into a surface filled with black water, while the ceiling turned into a dense dark cloud. The surroundings were intertwined with green and black mountains. The green and black fog filled the surroundings, and there were people in front of him. They were the people who were under control, and they completely surrounded Taisetsu. They took on the appearance of evil spirits, biting his arms and body, as if they wanted to devour him completely in this place. You come to me too. Cold. Terrifying. Under the water. Suddenly there was a shrill cry. Mixed with countless voices, it was the sound of everyone wailing together. From the black water, a small figure floated up. It was the appearance of a naked child. Come to me to accompany me. Its body was entangled with a mess of black arms. Some arms protected its body from behind, and some entangled its hands and legs. Some arms stretched out from its back, covering its eyes. These arms stretched out from under the black water, as if there was no end. Okay. I'll accompany you. In the frenzied biting, Taisetsu said calmly, I'll accompany you. It suddenly let out a shrill cry, and those people who were biting fell down one after another. The arms behind its back stretched out crazily, lifting up Taisetsu's body, which was full of holes, and dragging him over. It lifted him up and faced him face to face, and began to slowly sink into the black water surface. Uncle, run! Run! Taisetsu raised his head subconsciously, but saw the child who was trapped by the arms said sadly, Uncle, run. You are. Run, they. I can't control them, run, they quick. The child's mouth suddenly cracked open. Taisetsu way? Way Taisetsu way. Come to accompany me. Those black arms stretched out from the water surface more frantically at this time. They wrapped around the child one by one, and at the same time, they stretched toward Daz frantically. But when these arms touched Taisetsu's back, they suddenly shrank back painfully as if they touched a flame. It was the Taoist words written by Lord Jin on his back. Taisetsu didn't remember to wash them off. They still had some residual effect. Taisetsu way. But this aroused their ferocious nature. Taisetsu suddenly quivered, tearing off his clothes. The words on his back emitted a weak golden light, driving away the shadows of the twisted black arms that grabbed him. Let him go! Taisetsu shouted angrily, stretching out his hand to pry open the arms that covered his eyes, but he pulled away the arms that wrapped around him and pulled him out from them. Let him go! Let him go! Let him go! Uncle. It's okay this time. I'll definitely save you. I definitely will. The black water started to boil crazily at this time, and a terrifying and invisible face opened its huge mouth under the boiling water. He's mine. He's mine. Come to accompany me. Taisetsu held the child in front of him tightly, but his body kept sinking under the water. The Taoist words on his back suddenly burst out a brilliant golden light, rushing toward the sky. A gap was opened in this terrifying space. Taisetsu way. Can you hear me? Taisetsu way. It was Lord Jin's voice. Taisetsu suddenly looked toward the gap. Taisetsu way. The situation is critical. Listen to me, I'm outside. I can only open this gap. Come out quickly. Quick. I can't hold on for long. Quick. You old bastard again. Under the water, the horrifying face roared crazily. The gap that was opened closed quickly at this time, and the light beam that shot out from the gap contracted quickly. At the same time, more arms were not even afraid of being burned and disappeared. They flew forward and wrapped around Daz and the child one after another. Uncle. Taisetsu suddenly lowered his head and looked at the child, smiling. Don't be afraid, this time I'll let him go. Uncle. Taisetsu roared, twisting his body and using the golden light behind him to resist the black arms. He gritted his teeth and pushed the child toward the light beam. I'll replace you. Uncle? The huge mouth under the water suddenly rushed out and swallowed Daz. Looking at the child, seeing that the little guy had entered the range of the light beam and slowly rose into the air, Daz slowly closed his eyes. If only I could replace you that day, how good would that be? He was swallowed by the complete darkness. Xiaohu. Taisetsu's, Along's, and a few brothers' voices kept appearing in Xiaohu's ears. At this place with no way out, at the cliff. Don't come over, don't. I beg you, don't come over. Xiaohu still pointed the gun at the child's head. Save me. Wah. Xiaohu. Be obedient. Put down the gun. Taisetsu took 2 steps forward, gritting his teeth and enduring the pain. Be obedient, okay? Don't make any more mistakes, it's dangerous later. Brother Zhe. Xiaohu cried, I can't. I killed so many people. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. Xiaohu! Turn back! I can't. I can't. Xiaohu wailed emotionally. I can't go back. I'm a useless person. I can't earn money. I can't find a good job. My wife is about to give birth. I'm still gambling. I'm useless. I'm really useless, so, don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. Brother Zhe, I beg you, don't worry about me anymore. Don't cry. Cry again. Cry again, I'll kill you. Xiaohu. Don't be impulsive. I can't go back. I can't go back. Xiaohu shook his head. I'm dead, dead. Xiaohu. You said it yourself, your child is about to be born. Do you have the heart to do that? Don't you want to see your son born? Child. My child. Xiaohu was startled, my child. He slowly put down the gun in his hand. Taisetsu's eyes lit up at this time, slowly approaching. Oh right, Xiaohu, your wife told us that she wants you to go back. She wants to see you. She also asked me to ask you if you've already changed the child's name. Really? When did I lie to you? Taisetsu continued to approach. If you don't believe me, you can go back with me. Won't you find out? Oh right, the doctor also said that she had a difficult birth. Aren't you going to see her? Xiaohu subconsciously loosened his arms a little. Rumble. You can't run anymore. Put down your weapons, let go of the hostage and surrender. The helicopter flew over the forest and appeared above everyone's head, roaring. You lied to me. You lied to me. I don't want to go back. Xiaohu agitatedly tightened his arms again and subconsciously stepped back. Back, there was no way to retreat. Taisetsu jumped out, and his brothers behind him also jumped out. The latter just grabbed Taisetsu's legs. But Taisetsu's whole body was stuck to the cliff at this time. He could only barely grab the bag of Xiaohu's backpack with one hand. Xiaohu could only grab the strap on his back and hold the child's clothes with the other hand. The injured arm was bleeding profusely, dripping onto Xiaohu's face. Xiaohu was terrified at this time, trying to grab and pull himself up. Save me, brother Zhe. I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Uncle. Wah. His left hand felt like it was being torn apart. The belt slipped off his fingers bit by bit. The frightened child kept shaking his body on the other side. His brothers behind him were shouting frantically. I want to see my child, I want to see. I'm sorry. I'm really wrong. Brother Zhe, Mom. Woo-woo. I want to go home. Mom. I want to go home. Taisetsu closed his eyes. Mom falling into the depths of the abyss. Sinking into the seemingly endless darkness, Taisetsu didn't know how deep these arms were going to drag him down. He only knew that at this time, the arms were inserted into his body from all parts of his body. They should be planning to tear him apart in this place. Taisetsu Wei, Taisetsu Wei, do you think this can make up for your sins? You will suffer endless pain here. You will always be with us. Always. Okay. Do you think you can save him? That old thing is full of injuries. He won't be able to hold on, ha. Taisetsu suddenly opened his eyes. He saw that above him, Mrs. Lin's child, Lord Jean, and Big Head were also dragged into this place. All of them had lost consciousness. How can this be? The pain was magnified crazily. It was something deeper than the darkness. No matter what, at least I can save them. I already can't do anything. I can only watch again. This time, I don't even have a choice. Taisetsu subconsciously reached out his hand, but he couldn't grab the person above him. A key appeared here at this time. This key was Chapter 638. Taisetsu had heard this voice before. It was the voice of the young man who was willing to give him hot tea, give him a place to stay, and was willing to believe in him. Taisetsu did not even think about it as he grabbed the key. In his palm, A blazing stream of air gushed out. Boundless light burst out from his fist and instantly pierced through the surrounding darkness. The key was no longer an ordinary key. It was elongating and transforming into the shape of a sword. You are indeed suitable for Jeanlu. It also likes you a lot. When you were willing to replace Sister Lin's child, it liked you and wanted to help you. Luochio? Taisetsu tightly held Jeanlu in his hand. However, you cannot withstand Jeanlu's power. If you use it, you will die, truly die. Your soul will dissipate and no trace of your existence will remain. Are you willing to do that? It doesn't matter, Taisetsu calmly said. He suddenly took a deep breath and raised the ancient sword that gave him endless power. He charged forward and swung the sword. The souls that were dragging Sister Lin's son, Big Head, and Lord Jin's arms were instantly cut off. I wish that I could replace you that day. If I could be given another chance, a chance to start all over again. If not, then this time, no matter what, at least let me save you. Countless mournful cries could be heard. The pitch-black surface of the water surged crazily. However, a dazzling radiance burst out from the surface of the water and rushed into the sky with shocking might. Along with the shattering of the darkness, came the mournful cries of the souls. It was as if nothing had happened. However, a large number of people fell to the ground. Regardless of whether they were policemen or those who were being controlled, they all fell to the ground. The corridor was densely packed with people. Taisetsu even saw Lord Jin and Big Head who had fallen to the ground. They seemed to have only fainted. Everyone here had only fainted and were lying on the ground. However, the clear sable sword in his hand seemed exceptionally simple and calm. A sense of intimacy even entered his thoughts. Taisetsu stared blankly at the glowing ball of light floating in front of his eyes. This was his, Mrs. Lin's child. Taisetsu didn't even need to ask anyone to feel it. He wanted to grab it, but his brows suddenly furrowed. His hand subconsciously touched his abdomen. There was still a small knife there. It had been stabbed in by someone under the control of the evil ghost. Blood instantly stained his palm. Taisetsu only glanced at it indifferently and reached out to grab the light ball again, but he immediately pulled back his hand. He put down the clear sable sword in his other hand. However, just as his hand was about to leave, Luochio's voice sounded behind him. Taisetsu, once you let go of the clear sable sword, you won't be able to hold on. Are you sure you want to let go of it? If you don't, you might be able to hold on for a while. Taisetsu's shoulders trembled, but he didn't turn around. He took a deep breath and looked at his blood-stained palm. He said softly, "The other hand? This hand is too dirty. It's not good." Therefore, he abandoned the clear sable sword and used his clean hand to grab the small ball of soul. He said softly, "Come, I'll bring you back to see your mother, okay? I'll bring you home." Even though the voice continued to sound behind him, perhaps out of kindness or to remind him of something, Taisetsu turned a deaf ear. Or perhaps he didn't intend to listen. He could feel that his body was about to shatter. His steps were difficult, as if he was walking on a mountain of swords, but he was abnormally firm. The clear sable sword, which was abandoned on the table, started to tremble violently. It floated up in an instant, but it seemed to be restrained by something. It seemed unwilling, but in the end it gradually returned to the appearance of a key. This was because it was just an item that was stored in the inventory and buried in the club's warehouse. It was passed down from generation to generation and now belonged to the new boss. No matter how much it wanted to leave, it couldn't leave this rule in the hands of the boss who had given it ownership. Taisetsu can't control your power. Using it once is his limit. Luochio grabbed the key back to his hand expressionlessly. He asked those who had fainted to stand up with their eyes closed and return to their original positions. He also asked Jin Yi and Big Head to sit on the chairs in the hall. Finally, the boss snapped his fingers, and this place resumed its original operation. Everyone carried out what they were supposed to do a moment ago seamlessly. Only Jean Yi and Big Head looked at each other in shock and uncertainty. The people on the road didn't seem to notice his existence. Even if such a person was bleeding from the wounds on his body was like a pixel, constantly splitting and reassembling, repeatedly. No one would be able to detect it. For Taisetsu, his focus was only on the front. Yes, there was only one road that he wanted to finish. The old man in charge of the community didn't seem to notice such a horrible person walking in front of him to one of the buildings. Taisetsu came to the door of Mrs. Lin's house. When he was about to knock on the door, Taisetsu paused, flicking his hair and tidying up his clothes. "Who is it?" "Mrs. Lin." "It's me. Ganjing." Wait. I'm cooking, wait." Mrs. Lin touched the wall and came to the door step by step. She opened the door clumsily. "Ganjing? You came to see Mrs. Lin again? Why didn't you inform me in advance?" "Mrs. Lin, I brought your son back. Didn't we agree to have dinner at your house last time? It's not the first day yet." Mrs. Lin gave a start and then smiled. "It's Saturday. But it's good that you're here. Mrs. Lin will go downstairs to buy some fried chicken for you." No need, scrambled eggs are good enough." "I brought him back, what's wrong with you? You look tired." Mrs. Lin reached out to grab Taisetsu's arm. "Ganjing? Are you not feeling well? Why are your hands so cold?" "Maybe I caught a cold. Come in. Don't just stand there. Come in and sit down. Be careful, walk slowly." Mrs. Lin helped Taisetsu and sat down smoothly. "It's just a small cold. Why do you make me feel like a patient?" Taisetsu used the last of his strength to make himself look energetic. "A small cold is also an illness." "Silly boy." Mrs. Lin smiled. "Sit down first. I'll finish cooking." Mrs. Lin walked into the kitchen. Taisetsu covered his abdomen and opened his coat. A ball of light slowly floated out and then slowly floated into the kitchen. It floated beside Mrs. Lin like a happy fairy. Taisetsu's face had an ugly smile. "Mrs. Lin, I'm done cooking. You can eat now." Mrs. Lin held the dishes and walked out using the wall. If it was in the past, Ganjing would immediately come up to support her, but this time he didn't. Mrs. Lin couldn't help but feel a little strange, so she continued to shout, "Ganjing? Ganjing? Ganjing? I just fell asleep for a while." Taisetsu propped himself up and slowly sat down at the dining table. Only then did Aunt Lin smile and sit down as well. "Why don't you have a good rest at Aunt Lin's place after dinner?" "No need. I'll leave later." Taisetsu smiled and said, "I came this time to say goodbye to you. I'm going to work somewhere else soon." "So soon?" Mrs. Lin put down the chopsticks in her hand. "Didn't you just come back for a few days? Why are you leaving again?" "Well, you're busy with work. I won't nag you. How long will you be gone this time?" "It's irregular. Maybe it'll be longer this time." "Actually, I really want to tell you," Mrs. Lin nodded. "It's okay. It doesn't matter how long. You're doing a good job. I support you. 10,000 support. Come, don't just stand there. Help yourself to the food." "I might be leaving later. I just wanted to see you before I leave." "Actually, I'm that, Really, you're in such a hurry. You should have just called me and told me." Mrs. Lin shook her head and then used a spoon to scoop some scrambled eggs. "Eat more. You'll have strength later after you're full." Taisetsu held the bowl in tears and choked. "Mrs. Lin, actually What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Mrs. Lin tilted her head and moved closer. "What do you want to say to me?" The soul light ball slowly floated to Taisetsu's side and stopped in his hand. Gradually, the light ball turned into a shadow and a pair of small hands held Taisetsu's hand. She shook her head gently at him. Taisetsu moved his lips and looked into his eyes. He seemed to understand what he meant. Taisetsu took a deep breath and finally said, "I want to say, if I could eat your dishes every day, every meal, that would be great." "Oh, you scared me." I thought you were going to say something. Mrs. Lin breathed a sigh of relief. So you're trying to make me happy again. If you really want to eat, tell me in advance the next time you come back. I'll prepare more delicious food for you. Don't eat scrambled eggs every time. I'm sorry. Taisetsu knelt on the ground and leaned on Mrs. Lin's knee. He cried painfully, I'm sorry. Mrs. Lin, I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. Ganjing. What's wrong with you? What's wrong? Mrs. Lin touched Taisetsu's shoulder in a panic. Calm down. Why are you crying, child? Have you been wronged outside? Don't cry, don't cry. I'm sad to hear you cry. I let go at that time. I could have brought your child back. But I let go. I chose to save my brother. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Ganjing. Don't cry. Seeing you like this, Mrs. Lin also wants to cry. Child, have you been wronged? If I tell you, what will you do? I don't dare to think about it. I don't dare to think about it. It's not easy for you to get over this hurdle. I don't want you to accept such a cruel thing again. I want to confess everything to you. Mrs. Lin, I'm fine. Taisetsu shook his head. I just encountered a little setback, and then I had to leave again. I can't visit you often and take care of you. You scared me to death. Mrs. Lin patted her chest and sighed. I thought you did something bad. Silly boy, who doesn't suffer a little? Look at me, didn't I come here too? The days are long. You're a man. Why are you crying? Be brave and wipe your tears. Isn't there a saying that tomorrow will be better? As Mrs. Lin spoke, she tried to lift Taisetsu's body with both hands. Taisetsu cooperated and sat down. Mrs. Lin knows you'll get over it, no matter what the difficulties are. Mrs. Lin said with a smile, I have no relatives. I can't remember my husband and child. I've been alone for a long time. But Mrs. Lin was able to meet you. That's the greatest reward God has given me. So, Mrs. Lin has long regarded you as her son. You, if you're unhappy or uncomfortable, just tell Mrs. Lin. Don't be afraid. Taisetsu bit his lips. If you want to cry, come to Mrs. Lin and cry. Don't do it outside. How embarrassing would that be? Mrs. Lin grabbed Taisetsu's hand. If you're tired, come here. Treat this as your home. Okay, let's eat. Let's eat. Okay. Taisetsu said softly, let me pick up some food for you. Okay. Good boy. When Taisetsu picked up a dish, the hand holding the chopsticks collapsed in an instant. It turned into countless particles and dissipated in the air. Taisetsu gritted his teeth and reached out with his other hand to catch the chopstick. Only then did he not startle. But at this time, his legs were also rapidly disappearing. His body was also collapsing in an even more orderly manner. Mrs. Lin ate her meal. She didn't know that the figure formed by the ball of soul light was hugging her tightly from behind and slowly falling asleep, and also slowly dissipating. I don't know why, but Mrs. Lin suddenly feels like the whole family is here. Mrs. Lin subconsciously touched her face. Why am I crying? Ganjing? Ganjing? Mrs. Lin, I have to go, little by little. Taisetsu's body had completely dissipated, so soon? Mrs. Lin hurriedly stood up. Let me send you off. No need. I'm leaving. Just let Ganjing remain in your heart forever, okay? Mother. Lin. Dissipating with the wind, not leaving a single trace. Ganjing? Ganjing? Mrs. Lin called out a few times, but in the end she did not get a response. Already gone? Why didn't you say hello? She shook her head and sat down silently. She ate alone and the house was quiet. How about? Mrs. Lin suddenly put down her chopsticks. Knit another scarf for Ganjing? She seemed to have something to do again. She did not feel dull and lonely as if she had been injected with new vitality. At the funeral, some of the Luo family's relatives who could be called out, or those who could not be called out, were silent and some were in pain. This was the 7th day after Grandma Xiaochun passed away. The younger ones, such as Luo Shan, Luo Zheng, and others, had calmed down a lot. They also had to calm down because they were busy receiving those who came to offer condolences. They were busy from the day to the evening, and they still had to prepare meals for everyone. In the evening, Luo Shan came to Luochio's house and knocked on the door. The door was opened soon. Luo Shan glanced at it and saw a luggage bag in the living room. "Are you leaving?" Luo Shan looked at Luochio, blinked her beautiful eyes, and asked. Luochio nodded. "The high-speed train will be later. I have booked the ticket." "That's right. You have been here for so many days." Luo Shan nodded. "How about I send you there?" "No need." Luochio smiled and said, "You have been busy all day. Have a good rest. I called a Didi car. It will be here soon." With that said, a black car had already stopped on the village road. The lights of the car even shone here. "I see." Luo Shan also nodded. In the end, she watched Luochio take the luggage bag, close the door, and walk out. Before getting into the car, Luochio suddenly handed out the key. "By the way, if you are free, can you help me take care of it?" Luo Shan stroked her hair and took it with a chuckle. "Sure, but I have to hire someone." "That's fine too." Luochio nodded. "Well, I will give you a fixed service fee every month." Luo Shan was stunned and subconsciously reached out to gently knock Luochio's head. But after that, she realized that this behavior was a bit inappropriate, and a bit too intimate, so she quickly said, "If you want to give me money, I won't take care of it for you." "Sorry." Luochio smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble you. Just drop me off here." Seeing Luochio open the door, Luo Shan suddenly said at this time, "Luochio, is there anything else?" Luo Shan moved her lips, then smiled slightly, like a fairy smiling in the breeze, and said softly, "Next time when you come back, let's make osmanthus syrup together?" Luochio nodded, then opened the door and got in the car. The car didn't stop and directly drove out of the village road at this time. Luo Shan waited until it was completely out of sight, then sighed. Looking at the key in her hand, she lowered her head and smiled. Her mood was a bit light, so she planned to go back and make a cup of osmanthus syrup hot tea. Next time, the car quickly drove out of the village road and then went on the way to the high-speed railway station. At this time, the driver in front suddenly asked, "Don't you need to stay for a few days? I think Luo Shan seems to be reluctant to leave." "No need." Luochio smiled and said, "It's not that I won't come back. But have you dealt with your things?" The driver nodded and said indifferently, "I told Mr. Jean and Big Head that I planned to go on a trip to relax. I don't know when I will come back. In addition, I got a sum of money for Big Head to take good care of Sister Lin in the future. As for Xiao Yuqing, I sneaked into his house and his brother-in-law, Bureau Chief Cheng's house, and found a lot of useful things. I also gave them to Mr. Jean and asked him to help report it. Mr. Jean was happy to hear it. He had to let people know that even if he retired, he was not someone to be trifled with. I heard that Xiao Yuqing was taken away by the people from the city today, and so was Bureau Chief Cheng. At this time, they are already interrogating the city to identify their relative." "I didn't ask about this." Luochio shook his head. The driver was silent for a while, then sighed and said, "I just quietly went to burn incense for Grandma Xiaochun. Then, I also took a look at Ting Ting and the child. There is nothing to worry about." From the perspective of the rearview mirror, the driver was actually very young, probably in his early 20s. Around his neck, there was a gray scarf of a single design that wasn't even that well made. Under the scarf, one could see a key hanging on a silver chain. The key could be transformed into a weapon at will, a sword known as the Divine Weapon, Zhanlu. "Then, please work hard in the future." Luochio smiled slightly and looked out of the car window. The driver suddenly said at this moment, I actually gave the child's soul to, then, extend your tenure a little longer." Luochio responded indifferently, "Black Soul Messenger is not a fun job. Maybe you will resent me in the future. By the way, Shouldn't you look at the road in front when you drive? It is not good to drive dangerously. I know this very well. I got it. The driver nodded. From now on, Taisetsue is the sword in your hand, my master. The voice of the lines came from the TV. Mrs. Lin suddenly yawned, then drank some water and began to pick up the needle again. The new scarf had already started, but she was slow at knitting, so she had to knit slowly. When she finished, should she try knitting a sweater? Mrs. Lin thought for a moment. She had touched Ganjing several times. He was not fat, but was quite strong. Then, she should be able to grasp the size well, right? Mrs. Lin smiled. At this moment, the window beside the window swayed, and then something jumped onto the sofa. Mrs. Lin was startled. But at this moment she suddenly heard a cat's cry, and then something jumped onto her body and naughtily drilled into her arms. Where did this kitten come from? Mrs. Lin lifted up the little guy who jumped in. Why did you come to my house? Where is your master? Meow. Don't you have a place to go? Mrs. Lin asked. Meow. Of course, Mrs. Lin didn't understand what the kitten said, but a kind of intimate feeling made her unable to put it down. Maybe it was a stray cat? She didn't find anything like a pet collar on the kitten. Then, you can stay here with me. Mrs. Lin smiled, holding the kitten and gently stroking it. Well, your name will be Little Ganjing from now on, okay? Meow. What a good boy. Late at night. The motorcycle was speeding on the mountain road, and the rider was a young man. The young man didn't even wear a helmet, and his face was flushed. He had just drunk wine, and now he was very excited. Then, he twisted the accelerator and sped up again. Unexpectedly, the effect of the alcohol was too strong. He was a little confused, and the motorcycle rushed to the railing on the road, throwing him out. Extreme joy begets sorrow. The young man's body rolled down all the way, and finally fell into the reservoir here with a splash. The cold water of the reservoir immediately woke him up. The young man struggled to swim to the edge. He was actually a good swimmer, and often came to this place to swim secretly before. But at this moment, something grabbed his feet and pulled him into the water fiercely. Like arms, many arms. The young man struggled in pain, and the cold water poured into his mouth and nose. Finally, his whole body was dragged into the water, and was completely swallowed by the cold and darkness. The water surface was calm again. A crooked warning sign on the edge still said, "The reservoir is dangerous, don't play with water." Then, who will be the next person to drown? Is it you? Yin. Chapter 639. It was a space with length, width, and height of 50 by 50 by 10 meters. The four sides and the top and bottom sides were very rough. In fact, apart from a necessary entrance and a few ventilation facilities, this space was indeed very simple, because this was a space that was dug out more than 30 meters below the ground. Since it was not meant for people to live in, there were naturally no convenient facilities here. Instead, there was a huge single sofa placed next to it. Of course, the reason why it was huge was naturally for the person sitting on it. We call him Lord Long, now people call him Long Shiruo Long Loli in the martial arts world. Long Shiruo was holding a loudspeaker at this moment. The young girl's voice that was enhanced by the electronic equipment sounded loudly. You idiot! Didn't you eat? Concentrate. If you can't control 30 stones at the same time, don't eat dinner. Yes, teacher. About 20 meters away, a sweaty young man of 16 or 17 years old bit his lip. He closed his eyes again, using his mind to feel the things around him. Around him, there were stones the size of tennis balls, and what he needed to do was to control 50 stones at the same time according to Long Shiruo's request, not just simply making these stones fly, but each of them had to operate according to different rules. The young man became more and more concentrated. 10, 20, 27, 28, 29. The number of stones he could control gradually reached the limit, but he was still one stone short from Long Shiruo's request. Maybe it's because I'm not concentrated enough? Young man, Emo Xiaofei thought. As for why he was in this place, and even called Teacher Long Shiruo, it all started after the concert in the gymnasium. That was when Emo Xiaofei came into contact with a completely different world. Of course, from the moment he obtained his superpower, he knew that he had entered a completely different world. However, the concept of a monster entered his cognition for the first time since that day. Because he exhausted his strength to save a monster called Zhuifeng, Emo Xiaofei was on the verge of death. Unexpectedly, when he woke up again, he came to the pet hospital directly above the underground training ground. After a conversation, Emo Xiaofei and Long Shiruo exchanged some information with each other. When Emo Xiaofei inferred from the conversation between Long Shiruo and Qiqi Kamaya, this old senior had gone on a long journey. Emo Xiaofei heard that he had something important to do, but Emo Xiaofei didn't know what it was. That he was able to survive and seemed to have overcome the limitation of using superpower which would cause his body to collapse. A feeling of gratitude spontaneously arose in his heart. Your power is too dangerous. If you don't try to control it, it will go out of control one day. From today onwards, you will stay with me for the time being. I will guide you to train and develop your abilities. This was what Long Shiruo said to Emo Xiaofei, and Emo Xiaofei naturally worshipped Long Shiruo as his master, even though this was only his own wish. Are you kidding me? You want me to accept a human as my disciple? I just need a handyman here. Teaching you is paying for your labor. Do your job properly. I need people here. This was also the original words of the teacher. Emo Xiaofei went to school during the day. After school, he would come to this training ground every day and run errands for Long Shiruo. He heard that this was dug out by several powerful monsters under the command of Qiqi Kamaya. Is it really okay to dig out such a big place under the city? 30. When the 30th stone was also under Emo Xiaofei's control, he couldn't help but shout happily, "Teacher, did you see that? I did it." TSK. Long Shiruo was the type with a cold face but a warm heart. After being sealed into the appearance of an ordinary human child, she was often in a bad mood. In addition, she lost control of her emotions for a few days every month due to excessive bleeding. It took you half a month to get 30 stones. Emo Xiaofei, is your self-esteem so pitiful that you are satisfied with this trivial sense of achievement? This was probably the way to get along with each other. Emo Xiaofei smiled. He had long been used to Lord Long's face. Even so, he would prepare some particularly effective drinks that could quickly restore physical strength every day. Emo Xiaofei came to Long Shiruo while drinking the special drink, suddenly asking, "Teacher, can I take a day off from training next Saturday?" Long Shiruo blinked. Next Saturday? What day is it today? Friday? So early, what are you doing? Emo Xiaofei scratched his head shyly. That? Teacher, next Saturday is Christmas. I have an appointment. Tisk. Long Shiruo snorted coldly. So it's the festival of Estrus for you humans again? You should focus on the development of your own ability. Why are you talking about personal affairs? Emo Xiaofei was startled and subconsciously said, "That? Teacher, could it be that you don't have a boyfriend?" Long Shiruo sneered, "Humph, males only pursue females in order to use their lower body to rub and greet with the lower body of females and send out body fluids for their own pleasure. Such a disgusting creature should stay away from me." So, it's because you don't have a boyfriend? Long Shiruo suddenly smiled. The orb from Qiqi Kamaya that was always with her slowly floated above her head. "Xiaofei, you have been here for so long, but I haven't fought with you. How about today? You have to do your best. At least hold on for 3 seconds." The avatar with the power of Kelowna Shinryu appeared out of thin air at this time. The entire underground space was shaking because of the huge power of Shinryu. The pressure in the air made Emo Xiaofei feel suffocated. "Sorry, I was wrong." Rumble boom. "We have arrived at Yunjing Station. Passengers, please take your belongings. When the broadcast sounded, the train was in the process of slowing down to enter the station. Taisetsu, who was wearing a long black coat and a scarf covering his chin and lips, took the initiative to stand up at this time and take down the luggage of his current boss, Luochio. But Taisetsu found that the boss was looking out of the train window at this time, a sudden small movement. What's wrong? Well, it's just that two guests seem to be having fun at this time. Luochio smiled and stood up. You should have a chance to meet them in the future. Get off the train, Yu-Yi is already waiting for us. Taisetsu nodded. On the way back, Luochio had already told him about the general situation of the club. Although he didn't say much, Taisetsu had a lot of understanding about the servant girl mentioned by the boss. He heard that as the new boss, Luochio had tried to transform a black soul envoy before him, and he was the second one. Very wonderful and incredible things happened to him in this short period of time, and at the same time, it completely changed the trajectory of his fate. He thought that he would disappear like this, but when he woke up, he was given the identity of a black soul envoy and survived again. He once asked Luochio why he was willing to transform him into a black soul envoy, but the boss's answer made Taisetsu a little confused. Because I want to find a reliable one. Yes, it was such a confusing sentence. But this bit of uneasiness was quickly dispelled by the heat from the Jean Lu sword on his body. Taisetsu took a deep breath and followed Luochio. He left the carriage and walked directly to the platform. It was on this platform where people came and went that a very beautiful woman instantly attracted Taisetsu's attention. Whether it was her appearance or the strange aura she exuded, it made Taisetsu, the new black soul envoy, feel a kind of shocking feeling. She put her hands on her skirt, facing Luochio, and smiled slightly, like a blooming prosperity. The clamor on the platform seemed to become quiet because of this smile. This was the first time that the servant girl showed a smile after Boss Luo left. Chapter 640. Since obtaining the ancient book from that bookstore, Professor Trevor's translation of the Book of the Dead had made a breakthrough. According to Professor Trevor's translation, Wang Yuechuan temporarily knew that this book that allowed people to use magic was roughly divided into 3 different chapters: control, curse, and production. The other was the concept of holy prose, mentioned in the book. According to the description of the Book of the Dead, all applications were based on the application of holy prose. That was to use the correct pronunciation to read the holy prose. Through the role of the spirit of speech, it was to construct the entire process of the beginning, progress, and end of a spell. The Book of the Dead did not introduce much about the real tutorial of a spell. It was only the most basic explanation. Of course, it did not mean that there was no tutorial at all. For example, the spell that Wang Yuechuan had been trying but failing before had a tutorial. Later, he learned that this was the only tutorial in the production chapter. Yes, the only one. The Book of the Dead was such a book. It showed the existence of the holy prose. At the same time, it focused more on the use of this holy prose. Then, it was full of a large number of private lives of the person who wrote this Book of the Dead. In short, it shows you a formula, and then you use this formula to solve various problems. This was Wang Yuechuan's immediate summary after the lengthy explanation to Professor Trevor. For this, Professor Trevor was very dissatisfied. But Wang Yuechuan did not care about Professor Trevor's complaints, because with the correct pronunciation of the holy prose, he had indeed completed the only example of magic recorded in the production chapter that he had failed before. This was a very wonderful and incredible tactile feeling from his own eyes. He could see the small puppet that he completed with ordinary crystal powder and so on. It was now standing on the coffee table in front of him. But at the same time, he could also see himself sitting on the sofa through the puppet's eyes. Of course, from the perspective of the puppet's vision, the clarity was somewhat unsatisfactory, like a person with great myopia. On the one hand, it was because he had just learned the production technique and was not perfect. On the other hand, it was because of the low quality of the production materials. Furthermore, he still needed to learn the content of the control chapter before he could truly move this palm-sized doll. Wang Yuechuan was now basically certain that Qiao Yu, who had died, must be the mastermind behind the several vicious serial murder cases that he had solved in the past. With the ability obtained from the Book of the Dead, it seemed to be easy for him to enter a deserted place under the surveillance camera. Those black crystal pendants worn by the prisoners were probably the materials that Qiao Yu wanted to obtain back then. Wang Yuechuan recalled the time when he was in contact with the murderers. Once they lost the crystal, the criminals would become emotional and lose control of their emotions. But was this crystal natural or man-made? While he was thinking to himself, Professor Trevor walked out of his room. Seeing him put on his coat, Wang Yuechuan frowned and asked, "Professor, where are you going?" Professor Trevor shook his head and sighed. "The translator has encountered a difficult problem. I want to go out for a walk and relax. Maybe I can get some inspiration." Wang Yuechuan nodded and did not doubt this. Even when he solved cases himself in the past, if he encountered a problem that he couldn't solve, he planned to relax himself. "It's okay to go out, but, oh yes, I know." Professor Trevor nodded. With a reluctant look, he took out the Book of the Dead from his clothes and handed it to Wang Yuechuan. Wang Yuechuan said calmly at this time, "I understand the feelings of translators. But I don't want anything to go wrong with this book, so I hope you can understand me." Professor Trevor shrugged and said casually, "I guess I'll be back late tonight. I want to drink some wine." Wang Yuechuan agreed, and Professor Trevor went out directly. Wang Yuechuan sat back in his original place again and pressed his palm on the cover of the Book of the Dead. There was no doubt that he didn't have the knowledge to translate the Book of the Dead, but that didn't prevent him from feeling that when he used magic, holding the Book of the Dead in his hand would increase the success rate and make it less tiring. It might not be as simple as a tutorial, and it might even be one of the materials to use magic. Wang Yuechuan believed that Professor Trevor, as a translator, would realize this earlier than him. Taking a deep breath, Wang Yuechuan took the Book of the Dead and quietly knocked on the door of Professor Trevor's room. He found the ancient book bought from the bookstore and the translation ideas that the professor casually wrote in his notebook. Since there was no relevant knowledge in this area, then he would learn as much as he could. Wang Yuechuan was not a person who liked to rely on others, and he was even more reluctant to give more control to others. Just after leaving Wang Yuechuan's residence, Professor Trevor looked up and narrowed his eyes downstairs. As a person who could translate the Book of the Dead, Professor Trevor also had his own plans. For the translator, after translating the Book of the Dead, he found that this magic book was too unfriendly to the elderly. Even if he had mastered the pronunciation of the hieroglyphic earlier, he could not independently complete the magic that Wang Yuechuan had completed. He often failed at the last moment, even if he had the Book of the Dead. Physical strength, spirit, will, and even vitality, etc., seemed to be one of the factors of the motive force to use magic. They were collectively called magic power. "King, you are really cautious like a dormant viper." Professor Trevor suddenly sneered. "Control, curse, production, but there is a fourth chapter that I didn't tell you. Chapter 4, a soul." It was not difficult for Professor Trevor to imagine that Wang Yuechuan would not always rely on it to interpret the Book of the Dead. The power introduced in the book was too subversive. Faced with the temptation of this power, Professor Trevor didn't think that Wang Yuechuan could resist it. "No one could resist it. You should study my notes well." The professor called a taxi at this moment, then went to a bar. He drank quietly in a dark corner. The translation could be done early anywhere. The information in the book had long been recorded into electronic equipment. Compared with living with Wang Yuechuan and often worrying about this viper, this place could make Professor Trevor's thinking clearer. The soul can be immortal, even immortal, as long as a new body can be found. The professor muttered to himself, looking at the tablet in his hand. At this time, his cell phone suddenly rang, interrupting his thoughts. The professor frowned, but glanced at the name on the caller ID, and finally adjusted his mentality. "Hello, Tom." Professor Trevor calmly called out the other party's name. This was one of his friends, who was also a lawyer. "Trevor, I have done what you asked me to do. I just need to confirm it," Tom said quickly. "But old friend, do you really want to do this? Your wife and son are very opposed to your approach. They said that if you insist, they may go to court to sue you. These properties are all mine. I can do whatever I like. I don't have to worry about them," Trevor said in a deep voice. "Well then, the property under your name, deposits, and all the insurance and so on, I will do all the loans I can find for you. According to what you said, just find a private loan. No matter how high the interest is, as long as the maximum amount is about 5.7 million Australian dollars. Got it." After Professor Trevor said a few words to Tom, he immediately hung up the long-distance call. Soon after, there was another call with a different name. This was another bank experience that Trevor knew. "Hello, Professor Chui Fo, about the mortgage you made, we have approved it." Then there was a call from the publishing house. "Professor, are you sure you want us to buy all your copyrights permanently?" One call after another. In the shortest time, this professor with status had become an economic swindler. Finally, Trevor made a phone call and said slowly, "Mr. Liu, I think we can talk about the black diamond in your hand again." "Sure, when?" "How about 3 days later?" "3 days? I have a lot of buyers on hand. I'm afraid I can't wait for you, right?" "Mr. Liu, I believe that my price will satisfy you. Others won't pay more than me." 2 days, only 2 days. It's a deal. Club. On the second floor above, except for the masters and my room, you can enter at will. In addition, there is a room on the second floor that is working at this time. Don't bother if you can. The maid was explaining something to Taisetsu. In addition, the basement one is the warehouse and the master's study. If you don't have the master's permission, you can't enter. Taisetsu nodded and silently remembered the rules here. In fact, there were not many rules. Except for the rule that he couldn't betray the boss, it seemed to be very loose. The Black Soul Messenger had considerable freedom. "What about the basement too?" Taisetsu asked curiously. Yu Yi said seriously, "Only the master can enter the basement too. Any messenger, including me, will be in danger as long as they are close. Remember." "Clear." Taisetsu still nodded and suddenly asked, "Then do I have to greet other Black Soul messengers?" While saying this, the maid had taken Taisetsu around and then came to the kitchen. At this time, the maid was putting food that Taisetsu couldn't name on the delicate birdcage plate. None of the food was like a work of art. Number 9 is performing the master's task. I'm afraid she won't come back in a short time. As for number 18, because of the degree of freedom, you may be able to see her tomorrow or maybe after a long time. Yu Yi said indifferently. As for Taiyinzi upstairs, he is having a good time now. Maybe you can try to call him. In addition, number 1, number 666 and other Black Soul messengers are on vacation. By the way, number 666 should be ending his vacation soon. Let's get to know each other if there is a chance. Number 666? Taisetsu was stunned. On the one hand, he was surprised that the Black Soul messengers could reach the number 666. On the other hand, he was ridiculing the number 666. Chinese people had a deep friendship with 666. Yu Yi picked up the tray with the dishes and teapot and smiled slightly. This number seems to have a bit of an interesting meaning here. But in the West, it has another meaning. Of course, this is only a man-made definition. You don't have to care too much. Taisetsu nodded and said, "Well, let me help you?" "No, I'll serve the master." Yu Yi said indifferently, "Don't learn from the person upstairs." Taisetsu looked at Yuye's back and rubbed his chin. No one knew what he was thinking. But he didn't stop for long and immediately chased after her. When passing by a mirror decoration in the corridor, Taisetsu glanced at it subconsciously. After becoming a black soul messenger, he returned to his young appearance again. Have you introduced them all? Well, I've learned about them. The servant girl put down a cup of hot tea in front of the boss. Master went out and brought back a new black soul messenger. And it's a person who can use Jean Lu. Since the death of the messenger who used Jean Lu 100 years ago, it has been unable to find a suitable user. Master, are you preparing this time? For Punglai. Luochio just smiled and didn't answer. He suddenly opened his palm, and a fluorescent light floated out of his palm. The fluorescent light slowly rose and came to Yuye's eyes. The fluorescent light and her blue eyes met each other. The servant girl subconsciously said, "What a beautiful yearning." Yes, Luochio smiled and said, "But it's a pity to use it as a sacrifice. But the altar should like it very much." Yuyi smiled and said, Boss Luo's other palm at this time also showed a group of osmanthus flowers. They were like freshly picked, delicate and with a fragrance. Yuyi blinked. These osmanthus flowers began to spread in the master's hand and then gradually turned into a mercury-like color. Small pieces of silver osmanthus flowers began to be arranged and finally made into a small and exquisite hairpin. The floating fluorescent light at this time was integrated into the hairpin, giving it a touch of light color. Luochio took the newly made hairpin in his palm and then put it on Yuye's long hair. He whispered, "Then, will you like it? I like it the most." Chapter 641. When he saw Luochio put a clip on Yuyi, Taisetsu sensibly hid back in the corridor and waited silently. The experience of becoming a black soul envoy made Taisetsu have a natural awe of Luochio. But this scene, for some reason, made Taisetsu feel that Luochio didn't seem to be so mysterious. It seems that he has pulled back a little bit in terms of being a human? Don't stay there, come here. While thinking to himself, Taisetsu heard Luochio's voice. It was still the same warm voice as the 2 nights he spent in Luo village, which gave Taisetsu an illusion that he had returned to the old house in Luo village. It was just that it lasted from the 2nd night to the 3rd night. But at this moment, a black shadow slowly penetrated through the door and finally turned into a figure in a black robe. Is it also a black soul envoy? Taisetsu looked at the other party in surprise. 18, I just came back, and you came back. Are you welcoming me? Luochio looked at 18 who appeared in front of him and smiled. The black soul envoy who appeared was indeed 18. Facing the boss's greeting, 18 didn't have time to look at Taisetsu, who was also a black soul envoy, and quickly responded, "Subordinate greets master." In addition, here are the information of several investors. 18 respectfully stretched out her hands, lowered her head and walked forward, handing over the white card in her hand. Looking at 18's respectful appearance, Taisetsu subconsciously opened his mouth and was startled. If it was him, he wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Oh? Put it down. I will take a look at it later. Luochio nodded. 18 raised her head this time. She had recently taken the time to collect these investors. Although she currently cared more about Wang Yuechuan and Professor Cui Fo who got the Book of the Dead, after all, the cultivation of these 2 people was not something that could be done overnight. Therefore, as the Black Soul Messenger, she couldn't neglect the business volume that she should have. The moment Boss Luo returned to this city, 18, as a Black Soul envoy, had already sensed it. In addition, there was also the aura of a Black Soul envoy, but it made her feel completely unfamiliar, so she planned to rush back to see what was going on. This is Taisetsu, my new envoy this time. Luochio saw through 18's thoughts and directly introduced him. Then, after thinking for a while, he suddenly said, "Well, how about this? Taisetsu will be temporarily handed over to you, 18. Give it to this subordinate?" 18 was startled. It seemed to be a tradition of the club for the newcomer to temporarily follow the seniors to do business. Usually, there would be a period of time when they were partners. However, in the past 100 years, the club had only 2 black soul envoys. One was number 9, who was transformed by the previous boss, and the other was the current transformed Taiyinzi. You don't want to? Luochio looked at 18. 18 quickly shook her head and said, No, no, how would this subordinate dare? It is this subordinate's honor to be named by master. It's just that this subordinate has no experience in teaching black soul envoys. I'm afraid that I won't do well. If it was Taiyinzi, he would probably have happily agreed, right? Luochio said with a faint smile, It doesn't matter, just teach as you see fit. Besides, how much he can comprehend is Taisetsu's own problem. You don't have to feel burdened. I don't have any rigid requirements. 18 nodded. In that case, this subordinate will properly guide this new colleague according to master's instructions. After a small gathering for a while and a casual chat, Daz simply followed number 18 and left. He didn't say anything more. He seemed quite calm. Master, is it appropriate to let Taisetsu follow 18? Yuyi asked curiously at this time. As the person who had been managing the Black Soul envoys for a long time, Yuyi would generally consider the personalities of different Black Soul envoys under the premise that it was very likely to increase the diversity of types of customers. In fact, over a long period of time, it had been proven that different Black Soul envoys would choose customers in different directions. Some liked to choose human children as their targets, some preferred young and beautiful girls. Of course, there were also those like 18 who seemed to refuse no one, but in fact, they liked to play with mages to raise them. There were even some like Tai Inzi, whose personal hobby was how to please the boss. Isn't there a more suitable candidate for the time being? Luochio said indifferently, as the host of the God King project, Taiyinzi can't easily leave this position. So for the time being, I can only choose 18. With that said, he looked at Yu Yi and said softly, I can't let you do it yourself, right? If that's the case, I won't be able to enjoy the tea you make. Black tea. Do you want another cup, master? Thank you. Luochio smiled and continued, Besides, if Taisetsu is the type who is easily influenced, he won't be recognized by Jean Lu, right? Yu Yi nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She took out a piece of cake from the birdcage plate skillfully and carefully cut it into a small piece that was suitable for her master's mouth and had a nice appearance. It was just that when she cut the last piece, her wrist shook unnaturally, making her movements become jerky. Luochio said, Is it about time to add some oil? Do you need help? Then I'll trouble master. Yu Yi nodded gently. Some parts of the back also need maintenance. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Yu Yi is being coquettish, right? It's an illusion, then let's go upstairs. Several white cards sent by 18 were quietly placed on the desk in the boss's study room on the basement floor. Luochio, who had just completed the maintenance for Yu Yi, sat here quietly, his fingers swiping across the information cards. After a while, Luochio pulled out one of them, and this one disappeared from his palm as soon as it was opened. It would return to 18's hand again as the boss's reply. After that, Luochio took out a map from the drawer and spread the map in front of him. If Black Soul number 9, who had left to perform the mission earlier, was here, he would find that this map was exactly the same as the one in his hand. The only red dot that appeared on the map was still flashing. Almost there. Luochio thought for a while, then pointed at a point on the map, and a second marked red dot appeared on the map. After that, Luochio rolled up the map again, put it in the drawer, and left the study room. His next stop was the lowest floor, where the altar was located. When he came here, the altar automatically rose from the ground, releasing rolling black fog from the ground, as if welcoming his arrival. He walked to within 1 meter of the altar. After a moment of silence, he stretched out his palm. A white light floated in Luochio's palm, and in this white light there was a small tooth. Question. Luoqiu said seriously. Are Luo Qi's parents still alive? This information requires payment of 50 years of lifespan. Do you want to pay? Pay. Answer, no. Question again. Luoqiu thought for a while. Besides me, does Luo Qi have any blood relatives alive? This information requires payment of 100 years of lifespan. Do you want to pay? Pay. Answer, yes. Chapter 642. As some of the basic abilities of the Black Soul Envoy, Taisetsu didn't have much time to practice them. As an ordinary person, he didn't have a deep understanding of supernatural powers like Teinzi, so after becoming an envoy, he was able to fly seamlessly, atomize and other basic abilities. After leaving the club, 18 quickly shuttled through the sky of the city and finally stopped on top of a tall building. In the rear, Taisetsu stopped unskillfully. In fact, Taisetsu almost caused a situation where he needed to use the anterior lacrimal brake to stop. Bang! However, he also knocked a human-shaped dent out of the water tank on the roof of the building. Taisetsu was even stuck on the iron sheet on the surface of the water tank at this time. 18, can you give me a hand? Taisetsu looked at 18, who was standing next to him and looking at something, and called out. 18 waved her hand, and Taisetsu's body got out of the water tank. At the same time, she said rudely, "What's the matter with you? Why aren't you atomizing?" Taisetsu scratched his head and said, "If I atomize, the scarf will fall off." 18 was startled, shook her head and said, "Envoys also have the ability to dress. This is set up to make it easier to get close to the investor. It is very convenient and practical. You don't need to wear this kind of thing that is physical." Taisetsu smiled and said, "In fact, it doesn't take much time to change clothes. Well, next time I will control my ability to fly better, and I won't hit the water tank." With that said, Taisetsu floated up unsteadily again. "Do whatever you want, it is your own freedom to do what you like," 18 said indifferently, and continued to look ahead. Although she agreed to guide Taisetsu, 18 has been a Black Soul Envoy for a long time, but she hasn't taken on a similar job. Instead, among the existing envoy who is on vacation, she is unexpectedly enthusiastic about teaching newcomers. Looking at Taisetsu floating like a toddler who has just learned to walk, 18 couldn't help but secretly shake her head. The new master actually transformed an ordinary person into a Black Soul Envoy? Although they had some complaints in their hearts, under the premise that they couldn't betray him, they could only criticize him in their hearts. Sure enough, it's still not easy. Taisetsu muttered at this time. 18 was about to say something, but she suddenly stopped. Taisetsu reached out and grabbed the key pendant hanging on his body. "Jean Lu!" Taisetsu shouted, and then a sword light shot out, turning into a simple bronze sword shape. The manifested Jean Lu released a strong airflow, causing 18's black robe to flutter. At this moment, the Jean Lu sword had automatically arrived at Taisetsu's feet. Taisetsu seemed to have found a balance point all of a sudden. His figure instantly stabilized, and he soared into the night sky like a legendary sword immortal. He didn't seem shaky at all. Taisetsu circled around one last time, and then stepped on his sword as if he was stepping on a scooter, and stopped in front of 18. "Now there's no problem. I should be able to keep up without any problems. Where are we going next?" "This is the Jeanlu sword?" 18 was silent for a while, and then suddenly asked. The boss said to let me use it." Taisetsu nodded, and then said with a simple and honest smile, "To be honest, this kind of flying sword is really fun. It can be considered as fulfilling a childhood dream. By the way, 18, where's your sword?" "I don't have such a thing," 18 said indifferently. "I have another ability system." Taisetsu was startled. "I thought all messengers had similar equipment." "Didn't the master tell you?" "Tell me what?" Black Soul 18 shook her head and said indifferently, "Since he didn't tell you, maybe he has other intentions. Don't ask too much. Remember, as messengers, We only need to be absolutely loyal to the master. Under the premise that we don't violate the will of the club and the boss, we can protect the individual with a great degree of freedom. And as the user of Jean-Lou's sword, maybe the degree of freedom can be higher. Black Soul 18 thought silently. But in her heart, her attitude toward Taisetsu still changed a little. At least, she wouldn't resist. Okay, you are my teacher now, I will listen to you. Taisetsu simply nodded. Black Soul 18 suddenly said at this time, in addition, I suggest you not to use the power of Jean-Lou's sword as much as possible. You should continue to use your own basic abilities. After some time, I will arrange some combat practice for you. Combat practice? Taisetsu frowned, shook his head, and said, To be honest, I don't like to fight now. It's not up to you. Black Soul 18 said seriously, As the user of Jean-Lou's sword, wouldn't it be a big joke if you can't fight? And not only do you have to learn how to fight, but you also have to be proficient in fighting. Taisetsu frowned and subconsciously asked, 18, actually, do we have something like an enemy? For example, there are hostile forces who don't like us, or enemies who want to snatch territory or something. 18 sneered and said, Enemies? Don't joke, in this world, there is no such thing, and what we have to face is definitely not something you can imagine, nor is it something like the concept of enemy. About this, when you can completely release the power of Jean-Loup, even without me, Yu Yi or Master should tell you. Taisetsu jumped down from Jean-Loup's sword, held the hilt, and looked at the quaint long sword. Although I don't like to fight now, I can't repay the kindness of boss in this life. If he needs it. The sword's hum was crisp, as if responding to Taisetsu. A glimmer flashed on the blade of Jean-Loup's sword, and it finally changed back to the original shape of a key pendant, which was hung on Taisetsu's body again. I will listen to you and practice my own abilities more. Only then did 18 nod. Taisetsu asked curiously at this time, 18, what do you actually look like? I only see a black mist on your face. Let me take a look. Taisetsu only heard 18's voice was gloomy and hoarse, and he was also very curious about this temporary teacher and future colleague. There is no need for that. 18 said indifferently, the aura of each black soul is different, and it can be distinguished by this. When you see more black soul envoys, you will naturally know this point. Okay. Taisetsu nodded with slight disappointment. At this time, a white card suddenly appeared in front of 18. Master has approved it. 18 grabbed the white card, and after a while, she looked at Taisetsu and said, Since it has been approved, let's start working. Listen, you must learn how to fight, but you must also learn how to work as an envoy. Okay. When Luochio went upstairs from the second floor, Yu Yi, who had been repaired and restarted, was already sitting quietly in the lobby. When she saw Luochio appear, Yu Yi quickly stood up. Master, are you going home? Yu Yi stroked the hair of the headphones and asked, What does Master want to eat for breakfast tomorrow? Chinese food. Luochio thought for a while, and then suddenly asked, By the way, Yu Yi, have you ever been to South America before? South America? Miss Maid shook her head. If it's just about geography and history, I've read some of it. But I didn't really go there. During the period of my birth, I was active in Europe, and then I went to Master's country. Are you going to South America? No, not for the time being. Luochio shook his head. Let me think about it again. Well, I have to go home, my phone is about to explode. Master, take care. Oh, by the way. Luochio turned around and said softly, New hairstyle, it looks good. She was used to having long hair scattered, but now with a hairpin, it was a suitable discovery. Facing the master's praise, Miss Maid didn't hesitate to smile. After Luochio left, the lights in the club lobby went out one by one. Miss Maid sat on a chair and left a light on. Chapter 643. The white card has the ability to automatically track the customer. Black soul envoys are invisible to ordinary people. The conversion between reality and reality requires the use of thought, but compared to hiding, it is more difficult to appear in front of people. Along the way, 18 carefully guided Taisetsu on how to use his ability more proficiently. Finally, 18 stopped at the bottom of a building and looked up. Our target is here? Taisetsu also looked up curiously and asked. 18 nodded, and then walked straight into the lobby under the gaze of the security guard in front of the building. Taisetsu still had some misgivings, but after trying to imitate 18's appearance, he found that it was as if the door to a new world had been opened. Taisetsu waved his hand in front of the security guard and shook his head. The other party acted like nothing had happened and yawned quietly. Don't be bored, follow me. Oh, okay. Taisetsu walked up to 18, thought of a question, and asked, by the way, are there any rules for us to choose customers? Generally, the quality of the soul is high. 18 said indifferently, of course, it is very difficult to encounter a truly high-quality one. Taisetsu frowned. This, the soul, does it mean that the value of a pure soul is higher? If that's the case, wouldn't a naive child? What? Do you think that if the other party is a child, you won't be able to do it? 18 sneered. Taisetsu inexplicably felt a chill in his heart, but he nodded quite decisively. I'm sorry, I really won't do it. However, I heard that there are a lot of envoys, so I can't care about anything else, but at least I will take care of myself. Not bad. 18 nodded and casually pressed the elevator button. At least you won't be stupid enough to want to influence other envoys. However, you can rest assured that although there are envoys who prefer children, there have never been many of them. Now there is probably only one left. Moreover, purity doesn't mean that the quality is high. An individual's soul contains too many things. Therefore, a blank piece of paper is just a blank piece of paper. It's not necessarily precious. After all, every individual starts from a blank piece of paper. Taisetsu quickly followed him and asked, what are the things that affect the quality? 18 said indifferently. Thoughts, behavior, character, one's own ability, talent, or his social status, or how many people he can personally influence, how great his influence is, or even how many people care for him. Even the changes in an individual's heart during a certain period of time will have different levels of quality. For example, strong emotions, attachment, love, pain, hatred, and so on. Speaking of this, 18 suddenly looked at Taisetsu, and the black fog from the power of the hat rolled slightly. And among these, hatred is the easiest. Taisetsu was stunned. You're saying that you'll set a trap to make the target hate you? But didn't you say that customers are willing to buy whatever they want? 18 smiled coldly and said, voluntarily? When they opened their mouths and said what they wanted, was it not voluntary? Taisetsu, remember, as long as there is a need, there will be a place for us to exist. As long as people are still people, as long as they are still alive, there will definitely be dissatisfaction. As long as people still have pursuits, there is no such thing as voluntary or not. Greed is something that has been written into the soul since before birth. So what if we, as messengers, set a trap? Isn't the existence of this world a big picture set by a minority? All laws are also created by a minority. As for humans, they could only live in this game called reality? What, are you going to fight for the injustice of all mankind? Taisetsu shook his head. I don't mean that. To be honest, I am also an unclean person, and I also understand the principle that people have no choice in the world. 18 nodded slowly. It's best if that's the case. However, this is only my own course of action, and it may not necessarily suit you. In the club, as long as you can find good business, in fact, no one cares what means you use. Even if you incarnate into a pope, it's fine. Taisetsu laughed and said, what pope? Don't tell me you want to preach? Who knows? 18 smiled darkly, then flicked her sleeves and said indifferently, we're here, let's go out. Okay. Taisetsu didn't dare to ask too much for the time being, and quickly caught up with her. Then what kind of guy is our target this time? Us? 18 sneered. It's just me, not us. I'm just responsible for teaching you some basic things. This business is just a demonstration for you. Don't think that you will get a share of the credit. Taisetsu shrugged. This 18 is actually quite difficult to get along with. He glanced in the direction where number 18 was walking. Upstairs was a high-class office building with many companies, and in front of him was a signboard of an advertising company. Yam Creative Advertising. If overtime was an indispensable element of life for social animals, then for the employees of advertising companies, it was even more common. Working overtime until the day or working hard for dozens of hours was too common. I want to die. By the way, is there any Red Bull in the refrigerator in the pantry? 2 employees were in the bathroom, and one was talking to the other weakly. It seems that there is no more. I will go downstairs to buy it later. Then buy some food on the way back. Looking at Manager Zhu's appearance now, let's not think about going home to rest tonight. Let's get ready to fight through the night. Yeah, the film requested by the client has been shot, and the post-production is almost done. He is the only one who is not satisfied. It's going to be broadcast before Christmas. Can he make it in time? I think this Zhu Maolin has a lot of experience. Is there something wrong with his brain? This guy. Stop nagging. Who told you to be a social animal? His companion trembled and then pulled up his pants. Unexpectedly, the door of the bathroom also opened at this moment. A young man with tied hair walked in. Manager, you are here too. He shouldn't have heard it, right? The 2 male colleagues who were whispering felt their hearts skipped a beat at the same time. Manager Zhu in front of them just nodded and said calmly, I'll wash my face. Oh, then we will go out to work first. The 2 said quickly. Wait. Manager Zhu suddenly shouted at the 2, Boy, help me find some information of other advertising models. I want unfamiliar and pure ones. Manager, are you still looking for models at this time? I plan to make up a small film in another place. Zhu Maolin nodded. This, manager, you didn't mention about making up a shoot just now? I just decided. Zhu Maolin waved his hand and said, You don't have to find those famous ones. As long as they are new, cheap, or even students, it doesn't matter. I just want the right feeling. But who knows what kind of feeling you want? Manager Zhu. But the person who was appointed didn't dare to say a word. He could only agree. As a social animal, unless he wanted to fire the boss, he was really powerless to resist the orders of the leader. It was also a work order. Who cares? Anyway, if it goes wrong, you will be the one to take the blame. Okay, I will go now. By the way, go downstairs and buy some food and drinks. If you want to drink Red Bull, buy more. Ask Amy to reimburse with the department funds later. Got it, sure enough, he heard it. Chapter 644. There was one thing that Taisetsu had already begun to admire number 18. That was, Taisetsu found that she could stare at him motionlessly for more than an hour. As for whether number 18 blinked or not, it was unknown. If it took such a long time to stare at a so-called investor, or even more than that, then Taisetsu felt that the work of the Black Soul Messenger was definitely a hard job. But then again, this person named Zhu Maolin was indeed like what his subordinates thought, a workaholic. Such a person is probably the favorite general of the company's boss, right? It's just that the company's boss likes him, but it doesn't mean that the people below will like him. Number 18, is this guest difficult to deal with? Taisetsu couldn't help but ask after all. At this time, number 18 just slowly turned her head and glanced at Taisetsu, then she continued to look at Zhu Maolin, who was in a meeting overnight. She didn't make a sound. Taisetsu asked for a snub, so he had to look around. In Taisetsu's view, number 18 was completely mysterious, but for number 18 she was just confused about something. The new master's intention of approving this potential investor this time. In fact, going back the time to the road before she went back to the club, the man in front of her was just casually done by number 18. She just happened to pass by. She felt that this person's soul power was not bad, so she also made a white card. Zhu Maolin naturally couldn't be compared with the other investors she found. Although the other investors' information cards were not necessarily very serious, it was certain that the effort spent was much more than the one in front of her. The new master actually approved this investor, who was more ordinary than the others. Is this a warning to my work attitude? On the other hand, she had now observed Zhu Maolin for some time, but she had a feeling of not knowing where to start. It was not because of insufficient ability. To deal with ordinary people, a black soul messenger with a long history like her really had too many ways. But the problem was that there were too many ways, and she didn't know which method was better. She also told Taisetsu that the black soul messenger had her own preferences. Obviously, Zhu Maolin was not her preferred type. Or perhaps, because this time he needed to guide the new black soul envoy, Taisetsu, the new master chose Brother Zhe, who looked more ordinary and easier to start with, purely as a tutorial? In fact, there was a deeper meaning behind this. The new owner didn't want Taisetsu to be influenced by my style? It was the most irrational thing to complicate a doubt. Black Soul number 18 knew this very well. However, this was not a bystander after all. It was the one who acted as her master. Perhaps the new owner just casually took it out and didn't have any other intentions. But what if there was? The Black Soul envoys were born with an uncontrollable awe of their masters. They were in awe of the person who had the position of the shop owner. To be more precise, they were in awe of the throne. 18 felt that she had fallen into a strange circle of thought. Reason told her that this might just be a very simple business, but her intuition reminded her that it was not so simple. She suddenly felt a pat on her shoulder, and her body suddenly turned into mist and retreated. She gathered back again 1 meter away. Taisetsu's arm was still raised in the air, looking a little overwhelmed. "What are you doing?" Number 18 asked coldly. Taisetsu shook his head and said, "I just want to ask you, do you want to drink something?" He still held 2 bottles of green tea in his hand and explained, "I just saw that you were too serious, so I walked away and bought it." "Black Soul doesn't need to eat," Number 18 said indifferently. Taisetsu shrugged, "But there is also a sense of taste, right? Not eating, isn't it pitiful? Well, whatever. I put it here. If you want to drink, take it yourself." Boring. Number 18 flung her sleeves and continued to observe Zhu Maolin. "Also, don't touch me casually in the future. I'll let it go this time. If there is a next time, Jean Lu can't protect you." With a malicious warning tone, the key pendant on Taisetsu's neck buzzed at this time, as if it was quite dissatisfied with this provocation. "Jean Lu, come on. Come and hurt each other. So how long are you going to stare at her?" Taisetsu leaned against the wall, yawned, and then glanced at Zhu Maolin, who was waving a pen on the projection screen. He saw the ring on his ring finger and muttered, "This guy, if he doesn't go home, he can't call his wife, that's it." When it was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning, Zhu Maolin looked at all the employees in his group and said, "The candidate for the makeup shoot has been finalized. Boy, you contact her early tomorrow morning. It is best to let her come to the set in the afternoon. As for the script, I will prepare it. Everyone has worked hard. Let's get off work." The city was very quiet late at night. Some people dragged their tired figures away, while others returned to their seat. They pulled out the stool, covered themselves with clothes, and didn't want to move. Zhu Maolin looked at the time, then drove the car away. He kind of forgot when he began to like such a quiet night. He didn't have to worry about traffic jams on the road, and there was no dazzling sunlight. The city seemed to be asleep in front of him. But he was still thinking about the script for tomorrow's makeup shoot. At this time, there was only a vague prototype in his mind. He hadn't been able to grasp the specific details thoroughly. Soon after, he parked the car in front of a convenience store in front of the park. He asked the staff to buy a midnight snack earlier, but he didn't eat it. Now that he felt hungry, he settled it directly in the convenience store. In the end, he bought a pack of cigarettes, then asked for a bottle of coffee and returned to his car. While smoking, the car's stereo played Scarborough Fair. He slowly closed his eyes, and his mind began to empty as if he was exiled to the Bayenbrook grassland, where he was born. Ding dash! The notification sound of the mobile phone text message pulled Zhu Maolin's thoughts from the vast grassland back to the mobile phone in the car in front of the park. He glanced at it. Wife, are you still working overtime? Zhu Maolin, you haven't slept yet? Wife, I'm thirsty to drink water. I saw that you didn't reply. Zhu Maolin, and there is a makeup shoot tomorrow. I'm still in the company. You should rest first. Wife, and Zhu Maolin, good night. Wife, good night. Zhu Maolin sighed. The slightly astringent taste of the coffee brought him a little spirit. He turned on the laptop, put it on his lap, opened the document, and began to write the script in his heart. Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Coriander, sage, rosemary, and thyme, this was the only sound that accompanied him. Good night. Please find an acre of land for me. Coriander, sage, rosemary, and thyme, just between the sea and the coast. Chapter 645. When it was almost early in the morning, the black SUV slowly drove away from the parking space in front of the park. Taisetsu yawned again. Of course, the Black Soul envoy didn't feel sleepy, physically, but mentally. Are we going to follow them now? Taisetsu asked 18 curiously. 18 finally said, I admit that I made some mistakes. When I chose this investor, I didn't carefully examine him. I just felt that he was okay. But now it seems that he at least has something he desires. Taisetsu said energetically, What does he want? 18 said indifferently. A man who doesn't go home at night and would rather stay outside alone to work, deceiving his wife and not going home. What do you think is the reason? Taisetsu frowned and said, You mean his relationship with his wife is not good? 18 sneered. It's normal for men to be greedy for the new and hate the old. Even without the detection of past dreams, I can roughly tell. What is past dreams? This is my ability, it has nothing to do with you. 18 said indifferently. Then why did you say it? Taisetsu shook his head, then rubbed his chin and said, However, even if he doesn't want to go home, it doesn't necessarily mean that he is greedy for the new and hate the old. Sometimes men really don't want to go home and just want to be alone, okay? 18 said disdainfully, You mean, you know more about the investor than I do? Taisetsu shook his head. Of course I don't know as well as you. But I know men, especially married men. For example, it's normal to just want a personal space. Besides, if he had a change of heart, why would he still work here? Wouldn't it be great to go to a bar or nightclub to play to his heart's content? If it's true love, he won't cheat at all. If he cheats, such feelings are no longer pure. There has never been a good man. Big sister, have you been stimulated by something? Okay, let's not discuss this issue, okay? Taisetsu waved his hand and said, Anyway, you won't understand that as a man, sometimes he just doesn't want to go home. I don't know how to explain it to you. You won't understand anyway. Are you mocking me? 18 said coldly. No, it's just that men understand men better. Taisetsu quickly said, Speaking of which, should we still follow them? They have run so far. Zhu Maolin would make his movements as light as possible, usually at this time when he returned home. However, a pair of slippers had already been placed at the door, and the light at the entrance was also on. It was probably because the person had never thought of turning it off after turning it on. Zhu Maolin silently put on his shoes, glanced at the food covered with a gauze in the living room, and walked into the bathroom to take a shower. Then, he returned to his room and tried his best to relax his footstep. Even the way he lay on the bed seemed to be very careful. He set the time on his phone, but it wouldn't disturb his wife, because he knew that she always went to work early in the morning. Thus, His day ended at 5:17 in the morning. Her day started at 7 o'clock in the morning. When she got up, she saw her husband next to her. Then, she washed up and prepared breakfast. She knew that no matter how late her husband came back, he would always go to work on time during the day, rain or shine. He was never late when he was not on vacation. Then, she would go to work. At 7:40 a.m., she was ready to go out, and then wrote a note on the table to remember to eat breakfast. Of course, the food left last night had been thrown away. At 8:30 a.m., the phone rang. Zhu Maolin opened his bloodshot eyes and hurriedly dressed and washed up. The clothes he was going to wear today were already prepared on the hanger. Even the tie was already matched. Then, he frowned and changed into a new set of clothes from the wardrobe. Then, he picked up his briefcase and hurried out the door. After the door of the house was closed, Zhu Maolin walked out, but he suddenly opened the door and walked back. He picked up a piece of baked bread from the dining table and went out again. It was 8:45 a.m. at this time. At 8:50 a.m., she opened the door of her ceramic art classroom and began to wait for the students who came to class. She was a craftsman, and this classroom was where she met her husband. The first student came. It was an elderly lady with a well-to-do family. In fact, she came here to pass the time. "Teacher Yuhan, it's early today. Do you want to do anything? Let me help you?" "No need. Why don't you prepare by yourself first?" Her name was Ho Chen Yuhan. Hoen Chen. She followed her father's surname and her mother's surname. It seemed that because her father couldn't win against her mother's surname was ranked first. "Teacher Yuhan, why haven't I seen Sister Li and Sister Zhang today?" "Today? Well, Mrs. Li said that she will accompany her husband out for dinner today, so she won't come. As for Mrs. Zhang, she wants to accompany her son to see the piano teacher today, so she won't come." Ho Chen Yuhan thought about it and agreed. "Oh, I see. I still want to ask Sister Li to have lunch together. It's a pity. Teacher Yuhan, why don't we go out for lunch together? You won't go home at noon anyway." "Sure." She didn't think too much about it and agreed. She was also afraid to eat alone, lunch, or dinner alone. At noon, the two women, who were more than 10 years apart in age, spent some time in a nearby restaurant, chatting and chatting. They talked about domestic trivialities. It was really a waste of time. 1:43 p.m. "Manager, the lunchbox is here. Let's eat first." His colleague was called Little Wang. He came back alone with the lunchbox for the whole group in both hands. Everyone rushed forward. Zhu Maolin held the lunchbox and continued to think about some small details. He quickly swallowed a mouthful of white rice, remembered something, and asked directly, "Tboy, is the model sure to be here at 3 p.m.? And she promised me that she will come." Tboy quickly said, "The newcomer values this opportunity very much. She shouldn't dare to be late." "That's fine. If there is no problem with the real person, I will rush her out tonight." Zhu Maolin nodded and ate something again. But he didn't know what he was eating. Eating was just an action. This was pineapple that he didn't like to eat before. At 7:30 p.m. Ho Chen Yuhan took the takeout home. She ate, watched TV, took a shower, and read a book. Finally, she was sleepy and fell asleep. 12:15 p.m. This was her day. Today's retake didn't go well. The real person didn't have the ideal photo, so Zhu Maolin rejected it. In the end, he had no choice but to delay for another day. At 3:30 a.m., a little early, he went to bed gently again. His day was over.